How much time? How much time? How much time? How much time? There was more time talking about don't talk about it than we talked about it.
Vice Mayor Amoroso, it's 6 o'clock.
That's the only two issues I have.
Can I get all the electeds to the commission dais, please?
Pardon me? Oh,
You spend more time talking
you
about
should be on.
not talking about it than talking about it.
Okay.
Calling everyone to the
Have a
dais.
seat. Okay, I'm going to call this regular city commission meeting, February 5th, 6 p.m. to order. Clerk, can you call the roll call, please?
Mayor Pam Triolo is absent tonight. Vice Mayor Andy Amoroso.
Here.
Commissioner Scott Maxwell.
Here.
Commissioner Omari Hardy.
Here.
Commissioner Herman Robinson.
Here.
Thank you.
I'm going to start tonight on behalf of the mayor with a moment of silence, please. Thank you, and the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Hardy.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, before we get started on with the mayor's absence, I'll be leading the meeting tonight. I do it a little different. So again, the blue cards are in the back. Please fill a blue card out prior to when you want to speak. I don't usually let people come running up afterwards to try to get a card in at the last minute. Also, it's 3 minutes on non-agended items. That means anything that we're not going to speak about tonight is non-agended. You get 3 minutes. 2 minutes on agended items. And I also do not accept banking time. So you cannot give your 3 minutes or 2 minutes to someone else. We allow everyone to speak, and everyone gets the same amount of time. And there's a lot of people that like to speak, so please be courteous. Also, I like to share the love with proclamations. So, commissioners, you'll see proclamations in front of you. Everyone has something to share tonight, so please familiarize yourself with that. First up is our monthly school board presentation.
Excuse me, you have item 4.
Oh,
It's a
I'm sorry.
reordering of the agenda.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. There was one reordering.
It's just that item H has been deleted from tonight's agenda, and it's going to be heard, I believe, at the next commission meeting.
Item H.
Item H.
H, hold on one moment. H. is
Item
removed.
H, under consent, it's the legal services agreement with the law firm of Baker Donaldson.
Okay.
It's just not ready for tonight's meeting.
And
Okay,
I'd like to have a
approve
little
the
more
agenda.
conversation on
Hold on.
item D.
hold on.
Commissioner Robinson is saying,
Commissioner Robinson,
A little more conversation on item D under consent.
what was your request?
To have more conversation rather than be on consent.
Which is?
Item D.
he'd like item D moved to new business.
Good.
Okay. Is there a second to accept the agenda as reordered?
Seconded.
That's a motion by Commissioner Maxwell and seconded by Commissioner Hardy.
Okay.
Is that what I'm sorry,
no,
I
sorry.
apologize.
My motion was to accept the agenda as presented.
Okay. Okay, I'm sorry, okay. So.
Okay, the
we need
motion
a
on the
motion.
floor is to accept the agenda
As
ordered.
amended.
As amended?
I
Hold on. Hold on.
We had to make a change to the agenda, so
Correct.
I gave the one item that has been deleted.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Okay,
Okay. So we're accepting the agenda.
I withdraw my second. I wasn't seconding that. I thought that Herman asked his question or tried to get his thing in first.
Okay, I just need clarity. So there is a motion on the table to accept the agenda as reordered with just the clerk's change. That's the motion on the table at the moment.
That's right.
Okay. Do we all know the motion? Okay. Is there a second? Okay, motion dies for second. Is there a new motion?
I'm asking that item D under consent be pulled and put under new business.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion dies. I'm looking for a new motion. Yes.
Don't all of us have to vote?
A no, a vote is no. A no vote is a no.
Okay.
Am I correct?
So
Right,
what
so we
was
had
it?
2 yeses and 2 noes
two
on the
noes.
last.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay. I'm looking for a new motion.
I'll motion again that we have a conversation about item D under consent.
Can't do that.
Thank you.
Can I put it under, how about unfinished business?
Mr. Attorney?
I think Commissioner Armas is asking to pull item D, instead of putting it under new business, putting it under unfinished business, which is slightly different than the previous motion. It's very slightly different. It is slightly different. I think we know where it's going to wind up, but
It's not finished business, though.
well,
It's unfinished if we don't talk about it.
so I guess that's the motion on the floor.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second that if it's kosher.
Kosher.
Okay. If it's kosher to put that on unfinished business, I'll second it.
Okay.
Is this, now, we don't talk about this? Can we just say that this is a kind of a lot of money to put on a consent agenda item? And can we say that it's not necessarily uncontroversial?
More into your comments, because it's, right now, it's just deciding whether you're going to accept this agenda with D on consent or D not on consent. This really seems to be the question.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion dies. Attorney, I'm looking for direction.
Well, you need a motion to adopt the agenda to move forward tonight, and it seems like the hangup is item D, and the question would be if there already was a motion made to approve it with item D remaining on consent, that failed. There was a motion made to adopt the agenda with item D being moved, that failed. So unless one of the two gentlemen who were on the prevailing side of either of those two motions wants to make a motion, kind of at a deadlock.
That would be Commissioner Robinson and Vice Mayor Pro Tem Scott Maxwell.
Well, actually, any one of the four could make a motion. For example, either Commissioner Robinson or Commissioner Hardy could make a motion to accept the agenda without item D being moved, or yourself or Commissioner Maxwell could make a motion to accept the agenda with item D being removed. So,
Okay, those are your options.
I don't care for either one of them.
Commissioner Robinson?
Why would I change?
Okay. Mr. Attorney, we're at an impasse.
your other option could be to take item D and
Postpone it?
you could have a motion to move it to another agenda.
I'll move to item D to the next available meeting.
Point of information, which allows you to interrupt the speaker and is kind of like a superseding thing. Okay, point of information. Could we be helped by suspending the rules here?
Okay, it's still a 2-2, no matter what rules. There's no rules that I can think of where you move forward without a 2-2.
If we suspend the rules, we can, basically, it's the rules that keeps us from making the motion again, right? So we could suspend the rules, make the motion again, actually discuss the motion, and come up with some consensus because we're at a logjam. And I think basically we just want to discuss the item. There are people here who want to see the item discussed. There are people who have written into me who want to see the item discussed.
Point of order.
I asked for a point of information.
No, but you can't go on with your statement.
Okay, so point of information, how can we be helped by suspending the rules? Is that feasible?
I don't, in this situation, I don't think it's going to help you. I mean, you have a motion on the floor right now that's awaiting to be seconded or not, the motion to postpone this to another agenda.
Is there a second?
We're under no kind of time restraint.
I
Yes,
think
there
there
is.
is a time constraint on the transaction. I just don't
There
know
is.
the exact date.
There
but
is.
I think it's,
There is. It's
We should know the
Yeah,
exact date.
well, I think it's before the next meeting. I don't know the exact date.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Motion dies for lack of second.
I'm not going to accept the consent agenda as it is.
We've had that conversation. Mr. Attorney, any thoughts?
You could make a motion to move forward with presentations while everyone has a chance to think about it, and then come back to approval of the agenda after presentations.
Okay.
Can I,
Commissioner
Well-
Robinson?
we'll move along to comments then, or
Presentation.
presentations.
Okay.
Point of order.
Yes, Commissioner.
I don't think we can do that. We have to stick with the agenda. You have to change the agenda in order to.
Right. I mean, my point was, someone make a motion.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
yeah.
moved to reorder the agenda such that number 6 comes at number 5 and number 5 comes at number 6, such that the commission, such that 5 comes at 4 and 4 comes at 5, right? So that we put presentations ahead of the agenda additions, deletions, and reordering. Is that legit? Or
That's fine.
is that, okay, yeah,
Is
so
there a
that's my
second?
motion.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 We seconded it, that's an aye.
So you'll have presentations now, and then we'll come back to the adoption of the agenda after presentations are completed.
What was the vote? Was that 3-1?
No,
4-0.
4-0. Okay.
Okay,
right.
moving on. We have school board updates by Dr. Gonzalez, principal of South Grade Elementary School. Welcome.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and the Commission Board. Good evening, school district staff members and Lake Worth residents. My name is Anna Arce Gonzalez, and I am the proud principal at South Grade Elementary School. And I will be presenting a little bit of information about our school. I don't know where to, there it goes. So once upon a time in 1926, you had South Grade Elementary built, and this is just a little bit of a snapshot. 1956, actually one of my staff members' grandmother was a teacher at the school, and this was a snapshot of what classrooms looked like. Brief history of our school. Again, built in 1926, closed to lack of students enrollment, became an alternative education site in the 1980s, remodeled in the 1998, and then our students were housed at North Grade Elementary. It reopened again in 1999 in response to the large influx of immigrant children. Our unique strength is our culture and climate. We are a dual language program, meaning that our students receive biliteracy instruction, so they are being instructed in both English and Spanish in all subject areas. We also have our VPK program, and we have certain affiliations with our county and with Lake Worth. We have a band, and we accompany it with our FAU camp program during the summer. We have partnerships with PBSO. We have clubs after school, the Student Wellness Club, the chorus, the band. We have a robotics club, and that's a girls-only club. We have a soccer club, a board game club, and a South Grade Gents as well as a wellness club.
Really?
Yeah. Unique areas for improvement. We have, because of the influx of immigrants that we do get, lack of oral language development. Definitely always reaching to exceed our ELA, math, writing, and science proficiency scores. Getting more of the parent participation. Our parents do see our school as a one-stop shop. They do come to us for every service possible. But as far as seeing them at the school volunteering at the school site, that's still something that I'm working on. Last year I had 0. This year I have 15 parents that are committed to the school and that volunteer throughout the week. So again, I'm wanting to get that going. We're also heavily in social emotional learning and understanding and supporting students in trauma. Some of our students are coming from different countries, and the majority of our students do come from Guatemala, and they're also facing the immigration, the legalization of their families and their parents here in our country. So again, there's a lot of different concerns that are being raised as they're coming to our school. Teacher retention and supports, obviously keeping teachers at the school as we're building capacity within their instruction. And early development learning. One of the things that I'm aiming for is trying to get more VPK at my school so that we can get them at a much earlier start in their instruction. We have several partnerships that I'm proud of in grants with FAU. It's the AIT program. It's a program to help foster education and teachers in our school district. Palm Beach Atlantic University, Junior Achievement, again with social studies type of instruction in grades K through 5. We do also have several grants that we work towards, the Go Teach grant, Literacy Coalition. We have mentors. Lots of mentors that come to our school throughout the day and read with our kids. Journeys Church also comes in and volunteers and does a lot of special projects for our staff. We have a summer reading slide grant that we work on every single year to help support reading over the program summer. We have the Guatemalan Center that we also partnership after school program, and many of our students go to their centers for after school programming. We have Bridges that come to every SAC meeting once a month, and we go to their meetings once a month as well to help support our parents and our students. We have our after school program and the 21st Century, which is a federal government program funded at the school site as well. We have our Rotary Club that also has provided us dictionaries for all of our 3rd grade students. And we also wrote a grant where we have authors presented at the school because of the grant and the initiatives of the Rotary Club. The Pineapple Beach Neighborhood Association, they are a terrific partnership at my school and also has provided us with funds to help support the needs of our students. We have FAU mental health interns working currently. I have 4 working at my school during their internship to help support mental health counseling for the students. Monthly character counts. So every month we are part of this program. It's taking a look at pillars of success with students throughout the school. And Jack the Bike Man, he's one of our business partners as well. He provides a bike to one of our students and we feature them on the morning news. We have the Kids Closet, a food pantry that we started this school year. Pan Florida Challenge. Also, we have students who are homeless. I have 248 students who are identified as homeless, and they have what's called a power pack. So on Fridays, they leave with dry food for over the weekend. And then we have the Mary and Robert Pugh Foundation, who also provide us with a literacy grant. Student demographics, we have currently 866 students. Black ethnicity, we have 16%, 78% Hispanic, which is a total of 673 students, 4% white, and 2% identified as other. Our free or reduced lunch is 99%, 78% of our students are ELL, and 8% are ESE. So again, the ELL stands for the English language learners. So those are the students who are coming in to learn a second language, that being the language of English, and your ESE are the exceptional students. Total number of instructional staff at South Grade Elementary, we have 10% of our staff members are first-year teachers, 30% teachers 1 to 3 years, 17% teachers with 4 to 7 years of experience, 34 teachers more than 7 years of experience, 97% are highly qualified, 12% reading endorsed teachers, 70% ESOL endorsed teachers, and 2% of my teachers are national board certified teachers. We do have a large support staff as well. We have instructional coaches, math and reading. For math and reading, those years of experience totals 65 years. They equally have 30 and 35 years of experience. Reading resource coach, she has 30 years of experience. I have a single school cultural coordinator, 18 years of experience. ESOL guidance counselor, she has 3. We have ESOL support staff in my school, and again, those are resource teachers to help support those English language learners, an average of 25 years of experience. Dual language, 15 years of experience, and we have an ESE coordinator who has 13 years of experience. So obviously trying to retain a team of people that have that type of capacity is another piece to being at a school that you want to be able to achieve. Our needs assessment, this past school year, proudly South Grade went from a D to a C. Our ELA proficiency is 30%, math proficiency 53%, and science proficiency 30%. Again, taking a look at our needs assessment, number of students attendance below 90% is 55, that's the count, so it's a 6% total. Number of students with 1 suspension or more was 1 student. Number of students with 1 retention or more, and that was a total of 3%, 22 students. So we do work hard in making sure that attendance is priority at South Grade Elementary. So we have different initiatives that we do every month to facilitate success and really take a look at making sure that our students are ready to learn and at school. Also weekly, we sponsor a different program, again with attendance, and we reach out to the parents constantly and conduct home visits in order to help support that initiative. So our goals for this year, goal number 1, if we provide effective and relevant instruction to meet the needs, then we will increase reading on grade level by 3rd grade. So this is one of our strategic goals that we have at the district level, and it's one that we've taken on also here at our school. So we're taking a look at the strategy, and then we take a look at the rationale. So providing readers a variety of interactive job-embedded professional learning opportunities will provide in the Florida standards. So making sure that we're instructing within the Florida standards to be able to instruct. Taking a look at some strengths. We increased 46 points from a D-rated school to a C-rated school this past school year. 85% of the retainees in 3rd grade made learning gains in reading. Total ELL population, so again, those are the English language learners, increased 12.8 points overall in ELA and math. Your ESE students, the exceptional students population, increased overall in ELA and math. Science proficiency increased 10% from previous year. Total female population increased 17.1 as compared to previous year results, and total Hispanic population increased 9.5 overall in ELA. Here are some of our threats. High number of newcomers and migrant students. So again, they're coming to our school some with some educational background, but some without. So you may have a second grader or a third grader who has not been in school before. So having to assess and think about and deliver the type of instruction and the needs of those students. Transient population. So it's making sure that, you know, we're providing as much as that we can for the students, but at the same time, sometimes you have the situation where they're not always at the school because of the field work, because they go back to their home country, because of legal issues. Attendance and loss of instruction due to student migration. Teacher capacity of teaching the intended rigor of the standards. Opportunities for growth. Continue to develop capacity in the meetings, the needs of the EOL and the SW students. So again, these are students with disabilities. Ensure the right interventions are in place to increase student gains. Continue oral language development with all students. This is a very interesting culture, the Guatemalan culture. They tend to be very quiet. And when we're young and we're wanting to develop oral language, we need to be very talkative. So again, it's part of our initiative throughout the entire school is finding ways in everything we do is how do we continue to build that oral language so they're able to learn that second language. Ensure the right interventions, again, are in place. Continue oral language. Increase explicit planning for whole group and small group instruction. Continue to develop the capacity of all teachers. Continue parent and community involvement. And increase student engagement to include experiential learning. There you go. This past week, our fine arts teachers put together what's called an academic game. One of the things that we're trying to do with our building math fluency, is making it fun for the kids. So our fine arts teachers took this initiative of creating an academic learning day. So the kids here are competing in every classroom, and at the end of the day, they won trophies for their competitive spirits. So again, it's not just your classroom teachers, it's your fine arts teachers, it's your entire staff trying to help and support everything that needs to happen at the school.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we have a question before you leave us. Commissioner Hardy?
I'll say two things, and then I have a question. The first thing I'll say is awesome with the dictionaries for the third graders. These are actual physical dictionaries.
Yes.
I'm glad those have not gone away.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is, I just want to commend your students and their families, right? So you had basically 29% of your students are homeless or unstably housed, right? Under, I think it's McKinney-Vento, which is what
Yes.
You guys use. But only 20% of students show early warning signs, right? So there are probably 9% of your students that should be showing early warning signs, 9% or more, right? That basically are overpowering their circumstances, right? So I just want to commend them and their families on that, and you guys for working with them. You talked about unique areas for improvement. You talked about teacher retention and support. Talk to me about that. Is it a challenge for you to retain and support the teachers that you have? And is there anything that we can do to help?
Well, currently with just last year, my experience, because this is my second year at the school. So second year at the school, I didn't have to hire quite as much as I did my first year. So my first year, I had to hire a total of 24 staff members, 16 being teachers.
How many do you have? How many staff members and how many teachers do you have?
We have a total of 98
Staff members?
Right, 69 are instructional, and then the remaining, you're taking a look at tutors. I have like 8 tutors. You're taking a look at office staff. You're taking a look at cafeteria. So again, as far as instructional staff, you have 69.
Okay.
Yeah. So as we took a look at that, out of the 16 last year, I had 5 of them that did not pass their state certification. So automatically at the end of the year, if they don't pass their state certification, I have 5 positions I have to fill. So even during that process throughout the year, we at the school came together and did some tutorials for those teachers. We came together with the district, because sometimes they offer some of the training for teachers trying to pass their certification exam. And also FAU does that. So for those teachers, at the end of the year, the state will allow up to June 30th. If at June 30th you do not pass that test, you do not have your certification. At that point, I have to hire teachers.
Right.
So this year, the hiring of teachers was due to a certification issue that I had. So keeping teachers at the school, as far as retention, definitely the understanding there is you have all this professional development that's happening. Now, I am a Title I school, and the way it operates is when they're hired, they have to stay at a Title I school for 3 years. So you're building capacity for 3 years, goes by quick,
Right.
but then after 3 years, teachers have the option to move out of a Title I school or just go anywhere else. They have that opportunity.
Do you find that they do that?
So far at this school, the reason for people leaving has been for the certification issue.
Okay.
I'll find out more this year as to see what the concerns are. But in taking a look, reasons as to why teachers left this past year was primarily that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. And could you go into the highly qualified teacher thing? Because that is cool to have 97% highly qualified.
Yeah. The
Could you talk
state
about
no
what that
longer
means?
recognizes it as much as it did before, so it's making sure that teachers had certain certifications and certain endorsements to
In
be
their-
considered a high qualified teacher in a Title I
Right.
school.
Okay.
But now, because I think of the teacher drought that we're having, there's more of a wiggle room of hiring educators and having them commit to become highly qualified throughout the process. But the state of Florida isn't really taking those strict measurements as they did before.
Okay. And I have a question here, and this was in the newspaper, and I understand at my school it sometimes affects the choices that teachers make as far as what schools they want to teach at. And part of it has to do with Title I and the complexities involved in teaching in Title I schools. And part of it has to do with the fact that at other schools that are less complex, where the grades are higher, they may get, for example, an extra bonus every year just for teaching at that school, regardless of their performance as an individual. For example, you teach at an A school, the whole school of teachers gets a bonus. So I know teachers who have left their Title I schools to who are really, really good to go to these A schools. Do you find it difficult to get in the applicant pool?
Well, even this past year, going
yeah.
from a D to a C,
Really, really highly high quality teachers in your applicant pools as opposed to other schools that might be less complex.
I wouldn't totally agree with that. I think that
Okay.
usually at Title I schools, you see very, very defined teachers because of all the professional development that occurs.
Okay.
So I think for principals, when you see those teachers go, it saddens us because there's a lot of capacity building that took place, and then they're going to maybe a different school that would be able to use that, which would be great because it's going to benefit kids wherever you go. But definitely, I think at a Title I school, you do get that opportunity to build your teachers just because of the professional development that occurs at the school. But teachers that want to be at the school are going to be at the school no matter what. When they have that commitment and you have the right culture at the school, you have the right setting, then you have the right place to be. So it's not, if they're looking for something else, it's because they're looking for something else. But, that's one of my goals is to kind of build that culture and making sure that we're there for the students, for the families. And although, it may become academically challenging for us, it just makes us better.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I guess my last question would be on VPK. You talked about that, and you talked a little bit about the need there. If you had your druthers as far as VPK, what would happen at South Grade with that?
Well, currently I have 148 kindergartners. And in my VPK, I have 18 students. If I would be able to take on more pre-K students, it would help support the readiness of kindergarten. So right now I have 18 students that I'm working with who are going to be ready when they go into kindergarten. So if I'm able to impact them at an earlier start, it would just make that foundational build a little bit easier.
Do you know what your kindergarten readiness numbers were?
It was for last year, and it was for the year before that, it was 14%.
Okay.
Because when we got the information at the end of last school year, it wasn't for that school year, it was for the year before.
Okay, all right. And the last thing, your dual language kids and the boundary redrawing. Is there a plan in place to keep the dual language kids who are at South grade, who might be affected by the boundary redrawing? Is there a plan in place or something that we can do to keep them involved in the dual language?
Yeah. Upper leadership just last week decided to have 34 students that are being impacted by that 2014B section. So they have allowed us to keep our students because the receiving school does not have that program.
Right, okay.
So
Cool.
that,
Thank you, awesome. I'm very
Before you
pleased
leave,
about
I
that.
just wanted to comment, thank you for coming to the city of
You're
Lake Worth.
welcome.
And thank you for everything you do. I talk to a lot of parents, and they love you, and you're doing a great job. And my question was along the last question. I'm concerned of the redistricting, and I'm concerned about all those great things that we see up there that you're doing, and how an influx of new students will impact you. So anything that we can do, or if you have any concerns, please let us know, because that's concerning to me, that all the good things that you're doing could be impacted by a redistricting.
well, we're not receiving kids.
Okay.
We are losing kids.
Okay.
Because that's been the issue. South grade elementary is over capacity.
I was told that you would be receiving.
No,
so-
I am actually losing 175 kids minus the 34 dual language students.
Okay.
But it is a 3-year project, so it would take 3 years because it's a total of 248 students.
Okay.
So the rollout is for 3 years. So I won't be receiving, but I will be losing, which would give me more space at the school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Commissioner Robinson, did you have something?
I've been to South grade. I've recognized the change in attitude and the partnership that you've built with the neighborhood and the culture that you have to deal with in terms of parental involvement. And I really want to thank you for the happy attitude at school. When I see kids smiling, going from class to class, it's fantastic. And I'm looking forward to our city budget, helping you with either teacher or parent, principal involvement. But keep up the good work.
Thank you. I'm
You've made a
excited as well.
difference. You've made a difference in our city.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to City Tree Board presentation by Richard Stowe.
Melissa, it's on the desktop.
My name is Richard Stowe. Good evening. My name is Richard Stowe. I serve as chair of the Lake Worth City Tree Board. Are you going to pull this up? Or? It's down low. Okay. And this year's presentation is City Different. Okay.
Yeah, that's why I asked Melissa to do it.
So I just want to say I'm going to go ahead and shorten my presentation because I know you have a busy meeting tonight. So it's City Different, the Imagination of an Insurrection, Lake Worth 2019 to 2024. Then to go down to slide 16, I don't know if you can just fast forward it, yeah. Okay, hold on. We're getting okay. Slow down. Reverse a little bit. My bad. One more. Okay. I'm just going to start with some upcoming events that the tree board is holding, and the first one is taking place on Valentine's Day. It is it's our first tree board theater event. We have Agile Rascal Bicycle Touring Theater. The troupe is going to be here at the Cultural Plaza at 7 p.m. And they are a very interesting group that has written their play in the Everglades. And they're going to ride from city to city. And Lake Worth, we are proud that Lake Worth is Palm Beach County's only event, only theatrical performance. Next. This year's Festival of Trees takes place 2 days later on Saturday, February 16th at the Cultural Plaza from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. I'm going to repeat that. It's an early morning event, so 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. I know a lot of people have repeat activities on the weekend, but this is a time to set that aside and come down and enjoy the outdoor conference that takes place on the Cultural Plaza stage, where both the presenter, the speaker, and the audience share the stage. Next. Our first speaker is George K. Rogers. His talk is Ecology of Native Trees. Since 1999, Professor Rogers has served as the chair of the Environmental Horticulture Department at Palm Beach State College. After earning a bachelor's, master's, and PhD in botany from the University of Michigan, George did a postdoctoral fellowship at Harvard University, where he contributed to a massive project called the Generic Flora of the Southeastern United States. Those are a couple of books that George has written. Next. Our second speaker is Raymond Jungles. His talk is Bringing Nature Back into the City. Mr. Jungles designed the Leon Levy Nature Preserve in the Bahamas and was one of the dream team landscape architects that designed the Naples Botanical Garden. He, a fellow at the American Society of Landscape Architects, Mr. Jungles has earned 2 ASLA national awards and 48 awards from the ASLA Florida chapter. Here are some before and after photos of his work in South Beach, Miami Beach. Go ahead and click. That's before, sorry. And that is after. You can see those cypress trees, which Miami Beach or South Beach was basically a swamp back in the day. Next. That's the before. And here's one photo of the after. Again, a cypress with some native grasses and another cypress. Next. Our next presentation is by Steve Mouzon. He's going to be listening in from Alabama, where he serves as the university planner there. And he will join us by phone afterward. Steve is an architect, new urbanist, author. His firm, Mouzon Designs, and he is also principal and founder of New Urban Guild, a group of architects dedicated to the study of true traditional buildings. If you're interested in history, or I know a lot of us are interested in Lake Worth historical buildings, he has a catalog of most loved places, which he is often includes listing every structure built before 1925 in various historic towns or districts. Next. Then we are going to be joined from Vermont with author environmentalist Bill McKibben. His book, The End of Nature, published in 1988, was written before Al Gore invented the internet. He's going to do they're preparing a special climate warming video for the city of Lake Worth with the folks at 350.org. Next is we have a local speaker, Jonathan Burgess. He is ASLA. He's a landscape architect, landscape architect at Paradello Burgess Design Studio, and he is which designs restorative landscapes, and president of Spinnaker Group, a green building consultant firm that's designed over 130 LEED certified green building projects. Let's see, one back on that, or where are we at? Okay, yeah, that is a sample of his landscaping, Jonathan's landscaping work at the 401 house in Juno Beach. Next. Well, I am so sorry about Mayor Pam tonight, and hope everything gets better. But Pam is scheduled to read the Lake Worth Arbor Day proclamation, and then we will close the outdoor conference with Jason Bregman of a partner at Singer Studio, who some of you may know as the designer of the landscaping at Lake Worth Beach. Jason does design work that focuses on sustainable design and regenerative systems to help restore damaged environments. He's worked closely on projects with Michael Singer Studios since 2000. This particular one is a red mangroves at a dock in West Palm Beach. And then one more. Okay, and he did this is a LEED certified gold project in Delray Beach. It's called Spodoc Dental. That is the backyard, if you will, or the back of the building. And right before that, I think, is the landscaping out front. The festival concludes with a performance by Downtown Dance Lake Worth, and we have a lot of great exhibitors this year. I'm going to leave it right there. That, by the way, if you go one back, just for the record, this is Park Avenue in Winter Park, just north of Orlando. And in the lower portion of the screen is a Kunti, a native a plant that is a unique host to the Atala butterfly.
Thank you. Okay, moving on, we have a few proclamations. Our first proclamation tonight. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Our proclamation declaring February 16, 2019 as Arbor Day. Commissioner Robinson, you'll be presenting.
Thank you. Our proclamation for Arbor Day is whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas the holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, lower our heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Therefore, I, Herman Robinson, on behalf of the Mayor and Commissioners of Lake Worth, Florida, by virtue of the authority vested in me, do hereby proclaim February 16th, 2019 as Arbor Day, and urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands and to plant and care for trees to gladden the hearts and promote the well-being of this and the future generations. So.
Moving along, we have proclamation declaring February 2019 as 211 Awareness Month. And
Yes.
if you want to go down and join
was-
her, we have
Sure.
a representative from 211.
Put that on the wall.
Can you just, yeah, it's down by Michael. He just handed it to me.
Commissioner Hardy's going to come down and read the proclamation with you.
Hello. Okay, how do we do this here? Should we angle ourselves?
I should have had.
All right. Proclamation 211 Awareness Month. Whereas often during different situations, people need help in meeting life's basic needs, and whereas people may experience times of crisis and are not sure where to turn, 211 Helpline, with over 106,454 requests for help last year, is that central access point, providing individuals and families the guidance and support they need. And whereas people of all ages can access 211 via phone, text, or online chat throughout the day and night, the City of Lake Worth is indeed fortunate to have 211 Helpline. And whereas 211 also helps link vulnerable populations to crucial services with specialized advocacy and support programs that include 211 Special Needs Helpline, 211 Help Me Grow Initiative, Elder Crisis Outreach, and whereas 211's life-saving Sunshine daily telephone reassurance calls continue to brighten the lives of local seniors. Now, therefore, I, Omari Hardy, on the behalf of the Mayor and Commissioners of the City of Lake Worth, Florida, by virtue of the authority vested in me, do hereby proclaim February 2019 as 211 Awareness Month.
I know you want to speak.
He knows me so well. Well, I want to thank you, Vice Mayor and the Commissioners, for again supporting us this year. You know, 211 is kind of that little known number that is there for everybody in the community, whether you're rich, poor, you know, we're here to help people connect to those resources and services. Last year, we answered roughly, let me get the number out so I have the exact. We had about roughly 85,571 calls and contacts. Because we now have text messaging and chat and things like that, we don't just take phone calls. We're taking it all kinds of different ways that we're getting people coming in, reaching out for help. But I just wanted to let you know that, you know, 211 has actually been around since the year 2000. But my agency has been in the community since 1971. We got on board with 211 in about 2002. But we actually started off as a substance abuse hotline and a crisis line. And interestingly enough, we've come full circle. About 34% of our calls are, again, pertaining to mental health and substance abuse. So that's a huge chunk of calls.
The city has gone full circle. Your city has gone full circle, not you.
Quiet in
We
the-
actually,
Quiet in the chamber.
my agency has basically seen, again, there's now an influx as we started off as substance abuse and a helpline and crisis line. Now, we actually, for the city of Lake Worth, last year, for the calendar year, we saw 8,475 calls and contacts from this community. And of that, roughly 121 were of a suicide concern of different levels. So we are here to help connect those individuals to the services that can best help them. Now, in honor of 211 Awareness Month this year, we also wanted to promote one of our feel-good programs, which is our Sunshine Program. For those of you that are not familiar, 211 calls seniors every day to make sure they're okay. Now, my 211 service is Palm Beach all the way up to Indian River County, so we're including seniors for the other Treasure Coast counties, but basically some of these seniors have no one there to look in on them. So we're there to check in on them, make sure they're eating, just to make sure that things are going well for them. If they need additional services in this community, in Palm Beach County, we do have an elder crisis outreach team that can do one-on-one with those seniors to link them to services that can help them. So that's a wonderful program. I know we hate to see a senior that's isolated, and really we call them at the same time every day, and sometimes that's that only interaction that person has, and it's very important that we try to get other seniors involved in this program. So if you know of a senior that is living independently that would like to have that Sunshine Call, we're there. We're also there if it's a person that's younger that's housebound or disabled. So it could be a veteran, or it could be a younger person with a disability that's housebound. We'll call them and check in on them to make sure things are going okay. It just brightens their day. We also have another advocacy program that is geared towards children and families. We have our special needs helpline. So if people in the community know of a family that has a child with a disability, we can help link them to services as well. And our intervention program, our Help Me Grow initiative, for those families that have children under the age of 8, if they're concerned about that child's growth and development, and also behavioral health. So we are trying to connect that. We'll do a screening over the phone with that individual, that family, to make sure their child are school ready, to make sure that their child is on track. Say they have a 2-year-old, they're concerned my child's not speaking. We can go over the ages and stages of growth and development, the milestones, and actually we can do activities with that family to help develop those skills. But if it's felt that that child indeed needs more and additional services, we'll get them to the provider that can take it to the next level with them. So it's just a wonderful program. It's through the state of Florida, and it's free for families in the community. Just call us and we'll do that screening over the phone. Now, recently, with the advent of the federal employees struggling, we were doing what we could to help those individuals and families connect to food, meal sites, clinics if possible, with legal aid, which is out there to help them. The struggle we had, of course, was that we have people in our communities that are living paycheck to paycheck to begin with. So a lot of the financial resources really were very limited, and unfortunately, we couldn't just say that this was going to be a panacea, that there was money to help these individuals. But we at our agency, 211, were really trying to help those families connect to the existing services that could facilitate a good outcome for them. And I know that there are still families that are struggling right now. So keep in mind that if you encounter somebody, they can call 211. We'll do what we can to get them connected to available services that can help them. We hope that things work well for everybody, but sometimes in this day and age, you never know. So we want people in the community to know that we're here. We're also here for that mental health piece. If somebody just needs to talk, we're there for that as well. If somebody's overwhelmed to the point of suicide, we're there. Our staff are highly trained to de-escalate that situation and get that person to the services they need or bring services to them. So we want people to know that mental health is one of our #1 priorities at 211. And if you're struggling or you know of somebody that's struggling, we can help them find resources and services. So I think I've taken you on the tour. And I appreciate the fact that you guys are supporting us again this year. And I want to thank you. And if there's any questions, and one of my favorite sheets is our building resilience and wellness. So I want everybody to remind themselves that mental health is just as important as physical health, and taking care of yourself, specifically if you're a caregiver, is so crucial as well. So on that note, thank you so much.
Okay, moving along, we have proclamation recognizing Kevin Addison and Sam Hamilton for their efforts in teaching residents about hurricane readiness and preparedness. And
Kevin, are you here?
Kevin's
Sam,
here. Come on down.
Come on down. There you go. Let's put this up here.
Hey, Kevin.
Well, I'll tell you, ladies and gentlemen, this is a recognition, if you will, a long time in the making and well-deserved. So this is a proclamation for hurricane preparedness. So guys, you want to stand over here? We get really good pictures. Each year, whereas each year during hurricane season, here we go. We're taking pictures. That's okay. All right, here we go. Whereas each year during hurricane season, we are reminded of the threat posed by storms that can devastate our communities, neighborhoods, and local economies, caused by the effects of strong winds, heavy rains, lightning, and tornadoes that can cause serious damage. And whereas with proper preparation, we can ensure the safety of our community by working together to improve our knowledge and resilience to hurricanes. And whereas we as a city continue in our efforts to achieving the goal of being a secure, resilient community with the capabilities required across our neighborhoods to prevent, educate, protect against, mitigate, respond to, and recover from threats and hazards that pose a risk. And whereas the City of Lake Worth is proud of Kevin Addison's and Sam Hamilton's outstanding commitment to raising hurricane preparedness awareness by coordinating a hurricane preparedness seminar each year for all the residents and employees of the City of Lake Worth. Now I, therefore, Scott Maxwell, on behalf of the Mayor and the Commissioners of the City of Lake Worth, Florida, by virtue of the authority vested in me, do hereby recognize Kevin Addison and Sam Hamilton for their commitment and friendship to the City of Lake Worth. Congratulations. So not only do we have a proclamation, but we also have some takeaway gifts for them. So we've got some really beautiful plaques. Sam, here's one for you. If you don't mind, Kevin, I'll read yours. It says, "An appreciation of excellence in planning and coordinating the annual Hurricane Awareness Seminar and continued friendship to the City of Lake Worth." Presented to Kevin Addison and Sam Hamilton. Let's get a picture. I'll stand somewhere. Right here with the proclamation. You guys proud of me. Yeah. That's gonna be. Oh, come on! I'm in it. It's gonna be hard. All right.
One more time here, right here, kids.
No?
We're gonna make this real short. Thank you. This was not expected. The Addison family started this a long time ago, and I think it's about time that we recognize them. They did a heck of a job. Mr. and Mrs. Addison have passed away, and we have dedicated this seminar to them every year since then. And even before that, they were wonderful people. And that's Kevin's family back there in the back. Mine decided not to show up. I think they're out in the car, and so I kept a couple of them back there with me. I do want to thank Mr. Bornstein, Mr. Maxwell for coming and helping us out from time to time. We didn't have a whole lot of speakers sometimes. There's Mr. Bornstein. And I didn't recognize you without your guitar. And all of the vendors, the Sheriff's Department, the Lake Worth Police Department way back when, the Fire Department, they were all wonderful, coming out there and supporting us. All the vendors that came that didn't have to. I hope we got them a few customers, but most of all, I hope we got the message across that these hurricanes are nothing to play with. And we want to invite each and every one of you, Mark Esterly too, I'm sorry. Esterling? Easton. You put the wrong name on my check. So now we're even. And also they spelled Kevin's name wrong back there, so that don't make me feel too bad. Not on the plaque, on the paper. But all the vendors, Mark has done and been there for us like you can't believe. He's never asked us for anything because we didn't have anything to give him.
But we do appreciate each and everything that you do for us, really. We've set people up there for your printing service. And everything that you've done for this seminar has really panned out. I don't know if we'd have half the people there if it hadn't been for your advertisement, and we really, really appreciate it. The other person, one more person that we've got to thank is Mr. Mike Lyons. And I would love to do something like this for him. He can't always break away. He is the meteorologist up at Channel 25, and he is absolutely great. He's been there for us for now at least 6, 7 years, I think. And again, never asked for anything. So thank you all. Thank you all very much.
You have a date? Is it still at the golf course?
Yes, it'll be the middle of May.
Middle of May.
It'll be on the website for the city of Lakewood. Thank you. Silvio and Lauren will have your information if you need before that. Okay, thank you.
Moving on, our last proclamation declaring February 2019 as American Heart Month.
This is 381.
And the proclamation, is there anybody here to receive the proclamation?
Anyone here have a heart?
Oh, man.
Cardiovascular disease kills 1 in 3 women in the U.S., yet 80% of cardiovascular disease may be prevented. And whereas cardiovascular disease and stroke kills 1 woman in every 80 seconds in the U.S., and in an estimated 44 million women in the U.S. are affected by cardiovascular disease. And whereas 90% of women have 1 or more risk factors of developing heart disease or stroke, and whereas women are less likely to call 911 for themselves when experiencing symptoms of a heart attack than they are if someone else were having a heart attack, and only 36% of African American women and 34% of Hispanic women and 65% of Caucasian women know that heart disease is their greatest health risk. And whereas the American Heart Association Go Red for Women movement motivates women to learn their family history and to meet with healthcare providers to determine their risks for cardiovascular disease and stroke. And whereas women involved with the Go Red Women movement live healthier lives, and Go Red for Women encourages women to take control of their heart health by knowing and managing their 5 numbers: total cholesterol, good cholesterol, blood pressure, blood sugar, and body mass index. Now, therefore, I, Andy Amoroso, on behalf of the Mayor and Commission of the City of Lake Worth, Florida, by virtue of the authority vested in me, do hereby proclaim February as American Heart Month. And I have my red tie on tonight. Okay, moving along. So we are at an impasse, and at this moment, I'm going to make a motion. I've talked to the attorney, and I can make a motion. And I'm going to make a motion to approve the agenda with the clerk's addition and moving C and D from the consent agenda.
What?
That is my motion. Do I have a second?
Removing it, did you say?
Moving it,
To where?
C and D, to new business.
Second.
Sorry.
I have a motion. I have a second. All those in favor?
Point of order.
I'm sorry?
Chair, you can't make a motion.
Actually, chairs historically, chairs tend to quote pass the gavel, but there's no requirement that they pass the gavel. This has been historically the way it's been done, but the rule doesn't require that.
Okay.
Okay. So I have a motion and I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Nay? Motion carries 3-1. Okay, we will continue on. Commissioner liaison reports and comments. Commissioner Robinson.
Just quickly, it's getting late already, but I want to congratulate Lauren, Lauren Bennett, and the Leisure Services staff, Silvio, for doing a fantastic job of continuing to make the Block Party better. They had a fantastic mother-son, father-daughter dance at the casino, and we certainly demonstrated the success and influence that the library had with their Biblio Art Fest this year. It was wonderful. And I'm sorry I missed the photo op with our arborist, Dave McGrew, who is our tree person in Lake Worth. That's it.
Commissioner Hardy?
I'm sorry. I want to make sure that the public understand that Thursday's workshop meeting is going to be not focused just on the pool, but on the budgetary understanding of where we're going with the penny sales tax.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Hardy?
I'll pass. We have a lot of things on the agenda.
Commissioner Maxwell?
I'll pass as well.
Okay, I just have a couple announcements. Coming up is the Great Taste of Lake Worth. It's coming up the Friday night before Street Painting Festival. It gives you a chance to get a full taste of Lake Worth and come down and patronize the businesses that tend to be a little slower on that Friday prior to the event. There are tickets available here. Thank you, Ms. Rashkin. Also, House Representative David Silvers has an event, Farm Share, coming up next Saturday. Farm Share is a huge event. It's at Palm Beach at the, I guess I should put my glasses on and read it. Palm Beach Rehabilitation Center, just west of us. We tried to do something a little closer to the downtown. We just don't have the space because it's such a huge event. So any of your neighbors that may be in need, please come out for the Farm Share event. It's Saturday the 9th from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. And again, prepare yourself, huge lines, lots of food, but it's just a great thing for the community. And then Palm Beach County Gay Pride is coming up, March 30 and 31st. Great event downtown with a parade. We'll see you there. Okay, moving on. Public participation on non-agenda items and consent.
Is any of that all the stuff that's going to be moved?
There was stuff that was on 70. We'll work on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm okay.
You're okay, I'm okay.
Brenda Mercado, followed by Giovanni Estrada. Brenda's gone. Giovanni Estrada.
Can you move my previous one to where
Gone.
on the agenda?
Here, well, I think.
Maloney, Malona,
Gotcha.
Neholi, Malona.
Thank you.
Wes Blackman. Followed by Dorothy Gay. Is Dorothy still here? Yes.
Good evening, Commissioners, Vice Mayor. I'm here to spread some good news.
Can you give me your name and
Yes.
address?
My name is Wes Blackman, 241 Columbia Drive. I'm here tonight really representing the Cottages of Lake Worth. I'm president of their board. And I'm here to spread the thanks to everyone who helped with the Cottages home tour this year. This was our third one. The last one we held was in 2017. We skipped 2018. And we have a knack for picking the rainiest day in January.
Yeah.
Which we did, and that was January 27th. But even so, we sold out all 500 tickets. We had a limit of 500 tickets. They sold out 2 weeks in advance of the tour. We thought we were going to have scalpers in front of the golf course clubhouse looking for tickets. That didn't materialize, but we had 3 trolleys going through Eden Place and Mango Groves. We stretched out the area traditionally that we focus on for the cottages this year. And we had 13 homeowners participate. They participated from 11 to 4, which is quite a commitment on a Saturday. So I'd like to do a special shout out to them and all the board members and the volunteers. We had about 40 volunteers help for the event. Over 400 people did show that day, even with the inclement weather. I was putting up signs in front of cottages at around 9 o'clock and couldn't see 2 feet in front of me, and was afraid of what was going to happen later in the day. But the skies did part, and we actually saw sun during the tour, and it was a great day. We sold 4 boxes of Cottages of Lake Worth books. In terms of the people that were attending the event, I would say half were Lake Worth people and familiar with Lake Worth, and half were people that were tourists or otherwise did not know about Lake Worth other than through the tour. So it was a great event. We're partnering with Parrot Cove Neighborhood Association, and we'll help with their tour next year. They helped with our tour this year, and we're going to do that on a year-to-year basis. So just success all the way around, and good things were said about the city and the tour during the time, and I just wanted to let you know.
Thank you. It was a great event. Thank you very much. Dorothy Gay, followed by Cheryl Rashkin.
Good evening. Dorothy Gay, 1314 South B Street.
Please use the mic.
Okay. It's, can you hear me now? Okay. Now, again, code enforcement. I'm speaking on, since usually when I come, is either one of the utilities. So to get, again, tonight, I'm speaking for, I guess, on court enforcement. I've always ventured, whether I'm in this city or any other city, problems that seek to be about the same. And I remember one person stating last year, and I read back through the research, with having code enforcement either being with inexperienced people going out, looking at things with a narrow view, not necessarily taking the time to go to areas that need the most improvement. Wherein, as my home is I could say it looks like it's been manicured, everything's done. Happen to be, I have a scenery that has rocks or whatever to give the effect of the property, to make it look sellable. It seems that what they do, they take the time to look at little small items. I've had the experience where I had to go to other commissioners the same way. So I want someone to take a look at what the problems seem to be with court enforcement, whether it's a lack of experienced personnel, whether you can look at it that you have other outreach programs that can definitely, I remember that being mentioned also by Commissioner, that you need to take that a little further, to do a one-on-one consistently, not just coming by, sweeping by, and I stop and see something there and taking that item, writing it up. And what gets me the most is when you have penalties given down there. If you don't do this in such a number of days, this stimulates that you will be having this. And I've had it go as far as other cities, that we will take whatever it is, penalize you with a fee that will take your property. And I said, oh no, same thing I'm saying here as well. We need to take a better look at it, look at deadlines that have been set, look at the threats of penalties, which I don't see that you need to, especially properties that are well kept. Now, foreclosures, all those kind of properties, you need to take a serious look at them first.
Thank you. Ramsey McLeod, followed by Mary Lindsay.
Ramsey McLeod, 24 South C Street. This evening I want to address the topics of the road projects that's going on in Lake Worth, specifically two areas. As president of the Royal Poinciana Neighborhood Association, we're having a real issue with this commission who made the decision that there would be a citywide policy to utilize the latest DOT shared lane layout for our roadways, thus eliminating the bike lanes. However, in our area, it's creating a real safety issue for our residents. Bicycles are now driving on the sidewalks, which hampers the movement of individuals in scooters, wheelchairs, our small children. We even have an ice cream vendor on a bicycle, And I tried to speak with him about why isn't he in the street? He goes, no room, no safe. So they don't feel that the signage on the street puts a bicycle right in the middle. And they feel now they're interpreting that to be a target. So they don't want to be in the street. They don't want to get hurt. We are in an area where there's a larger concentration of foot traffic and bicycles. And for some of our residents, that's their only means of transportation. So the city has to take the responsibility to make sure that it's safe for them to move about the city, and it's particularly in our area. I've even had the side door of my truck kicked in by a bicyclist going by because I was reaching across the front seat to unlock the passenger door, and apparently my door was open too far, so he kicked it in. No damage, but I'm just saying the bicyclists are taking over the safety and the security concerns that we have regarding our sidewalks. When they did this work on North C Street, Lake Avenue North, they repaved that surface of the street and they put their bike lanes back in there. They repainted them, put them in. But south of Lake Avenue, we're not getting that consideration at all. The other topic, and I would appreciate if you could bring this back as an agenda item or bring it up for discussion, because I'm sure it's not just our area that's having some concerns about missing bicycle lanes. I think there's other spots in the city too that they're looking for them to come back. The other issue we have is an alternative traffic calming device. I've been before this commission before. I'm still having issues at my particular address with the city installing a proper sidewalk and moving the speed hump. Now, the hump was originally installed back in October, and they installed it, according to the engineers, right in the only cutout in my property. I went to the road meetings before. I offered 2 or 3 different locations on my property because it's 75 feet wide in the front to where they could put the speed hump. When it all came down in the end, it's completely blocking my cutout. Brian Shields, the city engineer, came over and looked at it after it was installed. We talked about it. I told him what the issues were, what my future plans were. He said, really, it shouldn't be in there blocking your cutout. However, on the January 14th meeting at the Citizen Advisory Board, he stated that once I put in this driveway, the city will remove the hump. I don't believe that for a minute.
Thank you. Mary Lindsay, followed by Anna.
Mary Lindsay, 327 Columbia Drive. Good evening, Commissioners. This is going to be really short and really sweet. I want to say thank you to the City of Lake Worth for adopting the Biblio-Arte Festival as the city's own festival. This year's festival was absolutely amazing. I have not seen so many children in the plaza unless they were there to get a free bicycle. It was incredible. So thank you very, very much to the city's Leisure Services Department, especially the Special Events Department, Lauren and Silvio and everybody there. And they're just, I don't have enough words, and I got a lot of them, but I don't have enough words to thank Cindy Ansel and Vicki and Kay Ralston at the library. They put together the most fabulous program. Our artist, our visiting artist, John Parra, visited every one of our schools, met with dozens and dozens of classes of kids with one purpose, and that's to show them a path and a passion that they can express through art and through literature. He gave away dozens of his new book. He was just everywhere. And the festival, we were blessed with spectacular weather. Arts and crafts. The library is now completely out of every kind of paint and paper and canvas and boxes to paint on. So we're going to have to do some supplies there. The musical performances on stage were nonstop and featured students from every single Lake Worth elementary school and the middle school. And they were incredible. They were just incredible. So the crowd was so big and so excited. You know, we had 50 people tour the museum that day as well. I don't know if that's the number that usually tours the museum on a Saturday, but it was just, it was wonderful. So thank you very much, and I hope you will continue to keep Biblio-Arte in the city budget.
Anna, followed by Michael Vivian.
Did you say me?
Yes.
Sure. Okay, I have a few questions. 35 South J Street, number 15, Lake Worth, Florida, 33460. I've got to tell you, I had some really horrible experiences in my building at 35 South J. You know, first of all, I just have a few questions kind of having to do with the difference between drug abuse, like drug addiction and drug abuse. My building is filled with drug addicts and I am disturbed by it. I'm disturbed by the drug addiction, let alone some really disturbed dream or proportion of health and mental health. Like, would you give up, you're talking about work credits that an individual surpassed pretty much every single resident that you share a property, like someone has surpassed like the landlord's, I've surpassed the landlord's children in work credits, like the age, they don't work. I think I've surpassed pretty much every neighbor on my property in terms of work credits for labor, even at the age of 15 through 18. I'm just a little bit disturbed, like how obsessed with mental health, the one-sidedness of mental health. I don't want to live in a city that is like a full circle. I mean, do you guys even drug test? Do you drug test like the people who work here? Do you drug test like the tree board, the tree board itself? Do you drug test people who work here? Just like it would be, I must have cultivated my landlord's entire bed that was filled with cigarette butts and neighbors. I mean, I gardened, and I cultivated the entire middle portion, the garden portion, filled with cigarette butts. I must have about as like work credits, college education, and still it's almost like as sick and disturbed, drug addicted, sick and disturbed, and I don't understand, what this mission is. That is like some bizarre, really bizarre uses of mental health that are like so one-sided. I would be disturbed by being in their presence any longer. Would you imagine giving up your right to what you earned in your college education, work credits, and like you're talking about like scholarship money, work credits like that have surpassed everybody in your building? You're a non-smoker, a non-addict. You don't drink, you don't do drugs. You have to wake up in a really disturbed smoke-filled rental. Is it some sort of dream that you're out there? I'm so sorry, I'm just so disturbed.
Thank you. Michael, Vivian? Michael?
I had some earlier contact, something to say, but in the sake of, I'll shut up and sit down.
Okay. Tammy Panza? Followed by Joseph Torres.
Hi, Tammy Panza, 116 North L. I want to talk about, first of all, Robert's rules. I've looked this up twice. Someone mentioned it. They're following this online. Here's how a typical consent agenda is handled. Chair places the agenda before the assembly and asks, does anybody wish to remove any item from the consent agenda? And then it refers to, if they want to remove it, they have the right to remove it. There is no vote on that consent agenda. Read it and you guys can look it up. I'm not going to read the whole thing. And then for that reason, since people may just want to arbitrarily remove things, when it's a good idea that you don't have any confrontational or controversial items on a consent agenda. So I would ask that consent agenda items be non-confrontational. Going back to communication, I emailed every single one of you guys about the recent issues with buying land for the structures downtown. I know it's been moved to another agenda, but with the idea of communication, I received one response from my commissioner that referred to a code issue that I emailed him months back and said, oh, I sent it to code. And I was like, that's not what I emailed you. If you read my email, you would have noticed that. And still, I got it remarked received with actually no response to the email, no reply, no conversation, no nothing. I've asked that confrontational item be taken off the agenda, and I got a response from the city manager that says, oh, that's up to the commission. And then when I asked a commissioner, of the one person that actually answered me properly, they said, oh, well, he didn't ask me. We don't make the agenda. You're going to have to ask him. So who does the agenda and who can say whether an item should be on the consent agenda or not? And why is it that people don't answer my emails? Anyone. If I email you and I email you a long time ago and I try to call you, I try to text you, I try to contact you, I would expect that my commissioners answer the phone, answer a text, talk to me in person. And then seeing this thing today where there's a 10-minute conversation on you're using Robert's rules supposedly against each other to try to shut people up, when some commissioners are bringing forth issues that people have brought up to them. And you're using Robert's rules to shut people up, and that's not right. So thank you.
James Torres, followed by Richard Garcia.
Hi, Joseph Torres, 512 North H Street. How's everyone? I'm a little disturbed to see this agenda D with CRA acquisition and development of downtown property for a public parking area. I've been here for 6 years, and at 5th and North Dixie, the law firm and the salon there is in desperate need of parking because their businesses are parking in my home.
I'm sorry, hold on one second.
I'm sorry, this is actually on the agenda later.
Yeah, but I'm just
okay, this is
speaking.
non-agenda items.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
No,
I'm sorry.
Did you want to be moved to
No,
that public item?
I'm speaking on it. I saw that, and that's why I was bringing it up because I didn't know, and I apologize.
Yeah.
There's a trash problem at 603 North Dixie Highway, which is right next to the Neptune in the alley. And I guess because of the location, this has been before Christmas. After Thanksgiving, this trash has been here. I would like you guys to ride past during your way home this evening and look over 2 months of this trash has been here. This is 6 years. This property has been having this ongoing nuisance problem of trash being there in the city doing nothing but allowing it to sit there. I made a call and spoke to Michelle, I think her name is, whatever her name is, answered the phone there with the Waste Division. 502 North H Street has a busted trash can, which I requested. This was 3 months ago. She said that it's coming. Well, the trash was all up and down the street for the holidays, all over the yards and everything. When the artwork that from the building collided, it was that same time. There was trash all up and down my street with this busted trash can. So I understand what the young lady here was speaking of when she's stating that the code enforcement is not really, our area is so bad for over a decade, we've been not properly serviced in our community. So now we get a new person and one person to fix all this drama that we have. And it's unfair for one person to have to do all this work that needs to be done. You know, Mr. Bornstein, I've been sending you all these numerous letters. 5, 6, 7, 509 North H, the empty house with all the trees and the shrubbery. People are coming out of there all night. People are living back there. The code, I have it written up. No one's done anything about it. All the trees and everything. Plant a tree, but where's our grass? I got weeds that I can't have grass in my house. And all this stuff has been written up and nothing's been done about it. And it's just like, okay, I got 2 entire families in a house next door and they got trees up here with all the drug activity going on and nothing's being done to amend the situation that we have with 2 full families with a low income investment property throwing trees up while all this drug activity is going on, affecting my security. You've been to my house. This tree's still here. Why? Look in front of me and look at how big this tree is. And I'm supposed to have this at my house in 30 years? I don't think so. Y'all have to do something about this and get this out of here and get this house corrected with the runoff as well. Thank you.
Richard Garcia.
Nothing's been done. 6 years up here. 6. Same thing.
Wow.
Mr. Vice Mayor, Richard Garcia, 720 South Palm Way. I attended the CDBG meeting last Wednesday along with Commissioner Hardy, Commissioner Robinson, and it turned out to be a mini version of what we had here on the 15th with the tenants union showing up. But I want to just stand here and applaud Jerry Kelly for holding his cool and herding the cats and getting the job done. So that's all I got for you tonight.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on. Approval of the minutes,
So moved.
second?
Wait a second, point of order.
I'm sorry.
I don't think, Mr. Chair, I don't think we formally adopted this agenda. All we did was make a temporary move. Or am I missing something here?
Oh, did we?
Go back to your.
No, we had a motion and a second.
Yes.
To reorder 4 and 5?
Yeah.
Commission C and D. From consent to new
Okay,
business.
very well, I apologize.
So moved.
Let me ask the clerk, was there a motion, did that also include a motion to adopt the agenda? I think the Commissioner Maxwell is questioning whether we had a second motion to that to adopt the agenda.
I believe,
Your microphone's working.
Hold on.
I believe the motion was to accept the agenda with the item that I had mentioned, item H was removed, and then you said that you went on to say that C and D need to be moved from the consent agenda to new business. And it was seconded by Commissioner Hardy, and there was a 3-1 vote with you opposed.
Not with me opposed.
With Commissioner Maxwell.
I didn't oppose it.
He didn't vote.
Well, did you? I'm really sorry. I thought there was 3-1. Didn't you say it was
I said
3-1?
3-1. I asked for a
I'm not,
nay, and
I'm
there
not,
was no nay.
I'm not the chair here. You know, he said 3-1. I guess he can count better than you.
Oh, I guess so.
Were you a yes?
You were.
Yeah, I went along with it.
Okay.
I thought you were the no.
You didn't say anything. You didn't say anything, so I.
I thought I.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so you took that. You did say 3-1.
I said all yays.
Okay.
And then I said nay. There was no.
Well, I'm
nay.
glad. I'm glad we had
Don't
this
pin that on me.
conversation.
I didn't say no.
Okay, so it's a 4-0
Okay,
vote.
so 4-0.
That's good. Thank
Okay,
you.
Feel
we
better now?
clarified that.
Thank you
Approval
so
of the
much.
minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I only heard 2 ayes. Let's make sure we're very clear.
Aye. How's that?
All right,
Thank you.
moving right along.
Approval of consent agenda with removal of C, D, and H has been pulled.
So moved.
Is there a second? Is there a second?
Remove, and D is moved to,
C and D has been moved to new
Okay.
business.
and
C,
H is removed.
And H is no longer there.
Good,
Is that a second?
that's a second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Public hearing, ordinance number 201901.
Ordinance number 2019-01 of the City of Lake Worth, Florida, amending the City of Lake Worth Comprehensive Plan by adopting a cultural master plan and a transfer of development rights program, providing for the repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing severability, and providing an effective date.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Can we discuss? Is this?
Oh, I'm sorry.
For discussion.
Typically, do we discuss? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for
Okay.
discussion. Okay.
William, did you have a presentation?
Okay.
We got the language.
Okay, is your light on? Thank you.
All right. So the last time we had this discussion here on the dais, I had some concerns and some questions, right? So typically, TDR programs or transfer development rights programs are not seen, although they can be, but their primary purpose isn't to raise revenue for the city that creates the program. The primary purpose is to basically preserve, for example, historic structures or agricultural land, and to give the owners of these structures the opportunity to cash in on the unused value of their property by selling their development rights to someone in another part of the area where we're okay with development occurring. And in that light, I really don't see a reason why we should have a TDR program that limits the ability to sell the development rights to the city only, which is an issue. So my personal, and it's not my personal, but you know, the other cities that have these programs, for example, other cities in Palm Beach County, it's not just the city that has the right to sell their development rights. It's owners of private properties as well. So that's the issue that I have. When I brought up that issue, it was said that, well, if you create, for example, a sending zone and a receiving zone, or if you, for example, say that some people can sell their development rights but not receive, or buy, or that some people can buy but not sell, that would be a spot zoning issue. And I had the attorney basically Ms. Godot, write an opinion that basically said that that was not spot zoning. So I just want to make sure that we have a conversation on the merits, not on the potential legal issue that turned out not to be the case, about whether or not we want to open up the TDR program to both city-owned properties as well as privately owned properties. I think it's very important to give owners of private properties the opportunity to participate in this program as well.
We have public comment?
Do we have public comment?
That's on 10.
Mr. Robinson?
Can we get an explanation from William on the pros and cons of it being more than just the city property?
I believe we have, but reiterate that, please.
William Waters, Community Sustainability Director. As most of you know, we don't have people beating the door down to invest in the city. We also have a number of properties that are not maxed out when it comes to development on them, specifically owned by the City Hall, the City Hall Annex, 1900, a couple other properties. In discussions with our executive leadership team and some of the budget challenges that we have, I propose that we come up with a transfer development right program where the city would be the first beneficiary of selling its development rights to increase the height, intensity, and density on certain properties in the city. Height, density, intensity will be west of Dixie Highway. Density and intensity would be east of Dixie Highway. And that there will be a pool of development rights collected from the city's properties. I also explained at the meeting that once those were exhausted, we could definitely open it up to the private sector. But I thought it was in the best fiduciary and financial sense of the city if we were going to create a program that the city benefit first and not the private sector.
Mr. Hardy?
Yes. You used the word first a few times in your presentation. Is there anywhere in this ordinance that says after the city has sold all its development rights, or after the city has sold a portion of its development rights, that the program will be automatically opened up to private owners of private property?
It's the language that's in the comp plan does not speak to that.
Okay, so basically this is not an ordinance that would allow the city to sell it first. It's an ordinance that would allow only the city to sell their development rights.
And based on the number of development rights that are available, it's highly unlikely we will even utilize all of them in 10 years.
Okay, but could I get an answer to the question? So this is an ordinance that says only the city can sell its development rights.
It's a comp plan amendment change. It's not necessarily an ordinance. The ordinance doesn't speak to that language.
Okay. What is before us is some legislative language that says only the city can sell its development rights.
For the comp plan, yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, so that's the issue that I have here. If it were the case that immediately after the city sold a portion of its development rights, right, that this program would be opened up to owners of private property, I could potentially understand that. But what I do know is that programs like this exist elsewhere, and they don't exist in this form. And so I personally would like to see this from the very get-go opened up to owners of private property. I mean, typically TDR programs are not seen, or even though they may be, but their primary purpose is not to give the city an opportunity to create revenue for itself. It's seen as an opportunity to protect certain areas and to enhance the development potential of other areas. That goal can be achieved with not just the city being the person who can sell their development rights. And so I first of all think that this should have been workshopped again, because we had a workshop and this issue was brought up. And in that workshop, it was said that that was spot zoning, and it turned out that it wasn't. So being that it wasn't actually spot zoning, I would like to see us go back to a workshop so that we can have a real discussion about this with just the facts and not this idea that it was spot zoning, because that was what shut down the discussion the last time. And that turned out not to be true.
Okay. Okay, I have one card in, Tammy Panza.
Hi, Tammy Panza, 116 North L. I don't remember a consensus that, at least in any workshops that I attended, where there were some concerns about the possible litigation that could occur if it wasn't managed or controlled appropriately or kept track of. And then I have an additional concern. We already have some gimmies with the sustainable development, and I personally think that should be reviewed, because it's a lot more appropriate and economical now to build sustainably than it was 10 or 15 years ago when these came into effect. So in effect, they may be developing that way anyway, and we're giving them gimmies already. So why should we sell our development rights so that they can get more gimmies and go outside of code or ordinance and build extra stories or extra density and extra everything? I mean, if somebody wants to build something, they're going to build it and max out their particular lot that they're building on and build it to the most, the best of the best value. They're gonna build it the best in the best way. And then now we're saying we're going to give you an extra story or an extra density or allow you to put more people in there by selling our development rights. And I just think that's opening up a can of worms. So, and I really don't believe the commission had a consensus on it. So I'm not sure why it's being presented now. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Robbins?
Can I ask, Mr. Waters, what the process is is there any approval process required once these development rights have been sold?
Well, the hearing tonight is to actually transfer it to the state for their review so we can incorporate it in our comprehensive plan. The language there spells out that the only way to partake of the incentives that are there are through a plan development, urban plan development, or mixed plan development, whereby the developer of the said property has already exhausted and utilized all the other incentives that are available in the comprehensive plan and the land development regulations. At that point, they can then participate in the TDR program, transfer development right, and purchase from us the development potential to add either density, height, intensity, or one combination of all three. And
But if nobody's beating, like you said, the door down, why would we want to restrict TDRs?
again, have been given some direction that there are locations in the city that could be more development palatable or more marketable if there were additional floors or additional floor or additional density to help make the economics work. Since we've had a very strict code, both from a comprehensive plan standpoint and the LDR standpoint, there's not a lot of wiggle room. So this was an idea to provide an offer to a developer and investor to get some more density or height, to encourage them to invest, and also benefit the city financially.
But why would we be restricting the rights to sell just to the city if there's a slim market?
Again, if there are going to be ones that were sold, the proposal was that the city would benefit from it financially.
Well, the city's going to benefit from any growth, right?
Right, but let's put it out there. Someone applies for this program, pays for the TDRs, have gotten that development potential, and it's not developed. We get the money for the TDR program at the very front end. Development may take 3 years to ever hit the tax roll. So the city will eventually get some revenue, but much of the interest in this program is in the CRA district. And the ad valorem change of taxes doesn't affect the city at all.
Is there a possibility that the complexity of your development rights and is restricting development?
I've spent the past 3 months meeting with developers and investors, and they are floored at how easy, comprehensive, and succinct our program is and how fast you can get an approval. The challenge is having those projects be financially feasible and meet the risk factor for outside investment.
Do we want to go over, I don't know that we should be doing it tonight, but if you've met with that many developers that are interested in this program but aren't developing, have they been specific in the reasons why, other than
yes,
the economic challenges? And
yes.
Are we addressing those in your future?
I am not
changes?
able to negotiate with property owners to have a reasonable sales price. I'm also personally not able to change some of the demographics that make it a higher risk for certain entities to invest in the city than, say, invest in other locations in the country. Most development money out there is controlled by retirement REITs or other equity funds, and they look at the development risk oftentimes across the entire country. And when you pull up the demographics for Lake Worth, we don't compete that well. So I'm working with best I can with Joan Oliva to look at smaller syndicated developers who have their own financing, who are willing to invest at least a little bit in Lake Worth and not run the risk of having to go to a bank and have their project go through the formal syndication process where the risk factors are looked at and a banker somewhere in some ivory tower is saying, well, would you rather invest in Lake Worth or say in downtown Los Angeles? And oftentimes we can't compete with those larger metropolitan areas.
Can we, in incentives to developers, have contributions to education? We just heard from a school that's very challenged. Can we include schools as an incentive to development? And
there would have to be a rational nexus between the extraction of a incentive from a developer. As an example, residential may be able to be argued. If you do residential development, there could be a rational nexus between new residents, new school children coming in, and maybe some money for a school. But if it's a private office development, it's going to be hard to correlate the impact of new office to impact on the school.
Employment.
Mr. Hardy?
Just a quick question. Is the only benefit of growth the ad valorem increase?
No, we get other revenues for our enterprise funds.
I'm not just talking about financial to the city. Are there other benefits to growth here in the city other than just the ad valorem increase?
Well, it would depend on what type of growth you've got, but our
Residential
demographics
growth.
can improve by having additional residents move to the city.
Okay, all right. And even if the only benefit of growth were the ad valorem increase, and if that growth occurred in the CRA district, are there not things that the CRA can do to support the city in providing services to the residents?
There are very strict regulations on how the CRA can spend money. It can't spend money on infrastructure maintenance. It can provide incentives for development. It can subsidize and help programs that encourage economic development and investment.
Code enforcement, police?
Potentially, yes.
Right, okay. All right. The other thing is, you said something interesting about why a program of this type generally might be wanted in the city. Could you go through that rationale again? There was something that you said. I just want to hear it again. Why do we need this program? Let's forget the particulars of we're the only people who, according to this change to the comp plan, would be allowed to sell the development rights. But why is a TDR program needed?
I've been told or led to believe that in some instances that there may be an interest in having a particular property be taller or have more density than what we have in our traditional comp plan or LDRs or the incentives we already have in place. So this was a vehicle to actually give some people, if they were interested, a little more density, a little more intensity, and in some cases a little more height if they needed it.
Okay. If that's the case, why create this complex mechanism for allowing that, as opposed to just, if that's really the case, presenting us with a rezoning of some of the properties in the areas where this occurs?
We've already adopted a full comprehensive plan that has all the heights, intensities, and densities in them. We can't upzone places beyond what the comp plan allows.
So
without doing a major comp plan amendment.
Let me ask that question. Are you saying that, okay, so you're putting this TDR program into the comp plan?
Right.
Okay, right. So why not just change the basic issues in the comp plan in these, or why not present to us more simpler changes to some of the basic land use categories so that more density and FAR and in some cases height would be allowed, rather than adopting this complex mechanism that makes it difficult for people, whether it's on the developer side or people in the city, to understand what's really allowed and where, right?
This doesn't change what's allowed anywhere. It just allows in certain instances a little extra for the particular project that wanted to go through that.
Beyond what we typically allow.
Right.
Which is, okay, so this is changing what's allowed.
I mean, the uses aren't being changed.
Right, the uses aren't being changed, but height, density, FAR is being allowed.
Just a little bit
what's being allowed is being changed.
A little bit. You're going to get a little bit more.
Okay, so I guess my question is, if you think it's important for people to be able to get more, why create this complex mechanism for allowing more when you could just allow more from the get-go. It would both accomplish what you want to have happen, which is to allow more, while also being more transparent and easier to understand. And my issue is, look, the only people who are going to understand this is the big, huge developer who has his team of lawyers and his AICP guy, right? And why not? And also, the citizens aren't going to understand this, right? And the citizens will have very little transparency as to what's allowed on a given piece of property, because now they have to understand the comp plan, they have to understand the LDRs, they have to understand the sustainable bonus incentive program. In addition to that, they have to understand the transfer development right programs, and then be able to imagine what's allowed. That's a lot of complexity. And so I guess, just for the sake of simplicity, if you really want to drive development, you want to make things simple as opposed to complex, why not just increase or present to us an increase in just the basic issues of FAR, density, and height in the comp plan? And why go for this mechanism? What is the benefit of this mechanism?
Actually, having these mechanisms in place, which actually force additional public hearings, gives a higher level of transparency to the public to know what's going to happen on a property.
I'm sorry, but you've given me that before, for example, with the sustainable bonus incentive program, right? But what we do know is that if there's a particularly contentious development project, the development review official can do what they did, for example, with the Dollar General, and send it to planning and zoning anyway, right? So there's always a mechanism for transparency if there's something that might be controversial coming before the development review official. Am I incorrect in that assertion?
Well, you could have the opposite.
Am I incorrect in that assertion?
What I'm saying is you could have it go either way.
Am I incorrect in that assertion?
Okay, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Look, here's the thing. I am asking him a yes or no question. I made an assertion. I said there is always a mechanism for allowing transparency.
Mr. Chairman.
Hold on, excuse me.
Excuse me.
No, I'm asking the person a question here because I think it's important to get the straight story. So my question is there always a mechanism for public review of projects? Okay, whether or not it's because someone has to use the sustainable bonus incentive program, or because the development review official always has the ability to send a particular project to planning and zoning. Is it true that there's always another mechanism for transparency and public review? That's a yes or no question.
You stipulated.
There could be means is.
Well,
It depends on the case. Okay, Commissioner Maxwell?
I'm ready to vote on this. I'm tired of I'm getting a little weary of the lecture.
It was not a question.
Okay.
Excuse me. I was asking him questions. I don't think this program is necessary, and I think even if it were necessary, I think the idea that the city is the only person. No one called the question. No one seconded a call to question.
I
and
just
no one
asked a
voted on calling
question.
the
This is your fourth bite at the apple. Okay, I don't want to sit here all night and listen to you talk. Give your political disclaimer and let's move on.
Then maybe we should have a workshop.
I
To
would
talk
agree
about
with
it
that.
further.
Because this is complex. In my opinion, it's
It's pretty
unnecessary.
simple.
It is unless it's in your backyard.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
First of all, my biggest issue with this is if I have a question, I have an issue, I talk to staff and try to figure out that question and issue so I can meet with residents and explain to residents exactly what's going on in their neighborhoods. I have a big problem with this, and we call it transparency. I believe that it's nothing more than attack. And years ago, if you were around, we did a lot of attacking from the dais onto staff. I am not comfortable with that. That is not acceptable. And if you have questions and you need information, you can talk to staff and get that information. We have a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Nays?
Nay.
Okay. Motion dies.
And we can bring it back.
No, we can't bring it back.
Conversation's done. You can't bring it back.
Yes,
You can talk to staff and find out exactly what can be done, but the conversation here is done.
can I say that?
No, the conversation on this particular issue is done.
I think that's where we get into issues of communication.
Use your gavel.
Okay.
I've actually looked up your rules about tie votes a couple times tonight. So your rules provide that a tie vote shall constitute a continuance of the item to the next regular meeting.
Thank you.
Okay.
But upon a tie vote on the same item at the next meeting, then it shall not be rescheduled except upon the request of the city manager, city attorney, or commissioner.
Okay, so the recommendation would be to bring this back to the next meeting.
Wonderful.
Okay?
Thank you.
That's where we are.
And I only say that communication between you and one individual of a citizen does not constitute communication to the public.
I agree. However, then it comes here for communication, but it should not be a fight back and forth
We're-
with a resident and/or staff.
In no way are we,
That's what I just, in my opinion, that's what I just saw.
I don't consider it confrontational when I
I
ask a
do.
question and William gives an answer.
I do.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
Lights off, please.
I've got a question.
Huh?
I have a question.
Lights off, please. We're moving on.
Oh, well, he gets to speak after you told him no, but I don't get to speak. Is that how that works?
No, no more speaking. We moved it to the next meeting. New business, where are we? Discussion regarding a plastic bag and plastic straw ordinance brought forward by Vice Mayor Amoroso, Vice Mayor Pro Temp Maxwell, and Commissioner Hardy. Who'd like to go first?
May I?
Of course.
Commissioner Hardy.
So there is a city in the Bay Area that basically found a way to do what Coral Gables did, for example, without getting sued, right? So Coral Gables banned plastic bags and styrofoam, and they immediately got sued by 7-Eleven because there's a state law preempting cities from banning these sorts of things. They actually won in the first round. The case went to the appellate courts. It's still in the appellate courts. And while I'm very interested in making sure that, and basically banning these kinds of single-use plastics, I don't want to put the city in a situation where, we're subject to any kind of civil litigation. I would much prefer to watch how things work out with Coral Gables in the appellate court. Now, that said, what I believe it was St. Petersburg did was that they banned these things on city property only, right? And so, for example, we have oceanfront property where people probably shouldn't be using plastic, right literally where the sea turtles, like that's literally where they nest and where they live. In addition to that, we have property along the waterfront in Bryant Park where we have festivals where people are using plastic and styrofoam, not a good thing. In addition to that, we have properties where we have sometimes food trucks, whether or not it's a food truck invasion or whether or not it's, which has been suspended indefinitely, or whether or not it's, for example, what we had at Biblio Arte, where there were food trucks there, where we probably should send a message about, what it is that we value here. And so I would like to see us see at city properties only, where it's our property. We have a right to make the rules at our property, that we do not allow vendors or our tenants to use single-use plastics there, such as plastic bags, such as plastic straws, such as plastic cups, and things of that nature, because it's our property. And under the state law, that actually wasn't covered. So I think St. Petersburg did the smartest thing. They respected the state law. They sent a resolution to the state saying, hey, you should stop preempting us on this issue. But they also controlled what they could control, which was what happened on their property. I would like to see us do that. And that's why I asked for this to come forward. And I've been working with the attorney on this issue since the summer. So yeah, I think like June. So yeah.
Commissioner Maxwell?
Thank you. This is one of those situations where I think most reasonable people would agree that in a perfect world, we'd be able to ban all these plastic bags and straws and other plastic and styrofoam items. Unfortunately, this is one of those issues, much like the balloon issue that we entertained here a couple of years ago, where it's going to be almost impossible. In fact, I'll go so far as to say it's just about impossible to enforce this as an ordinance, okay? Because at the end of the day, unless there's some way we can craft this into a criminal offense, it becomes a civil offense and a code enforcement issue, and we all know how code enforcement works. I think the optimum way to approach this is come up with a hybrid of some sort of a resolution recommending the discontinuance of this, and I think we have plenty of examples on the Gulf Coast of Florida of cities that have different incentive programs in place that encourage local businesses to use paper instead of plastic. And I don't think I could, I think it's a waste of our time and frankly our money to go down that road and try to impose an ordinance. I think we would better serve to just go ahead and look at best practices from other communities and put some a resolution together and encourage our businesses and educate the folks on how to to dispense, single-use items. Thank you.
Commissioner Robinson?
I'm sorry, my name's not connected to this, because I certainly would like to eliminate styrofoam as well. And I'm just fascinated that we can take such a national issue and bring it down and put it
Point
on
of
the
order.
agenda.
Point of order, Chairman.
Yes.
Okay, this is ridiculous.
Are you finished?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna weigh in here. We have one card from Richard. So years ago, we sent a resolution to Tallahassee encouraging Tallahassee to do the right thing. Nothing has come down through Tallahassee. Most recently, Senator Rader has put forward a new bill, and I would recommend that we write a resolution supporting Senator Rader's bill. I'd also like us to put together some kind of resolution encouraging the citizens of Lake Worth and our business owners to do the right thing. I too would love to see styrofoam gone, but if we could start with plastic bags and straws, I can tell you in my daily business, and I brought everybody a little sample, I'm already doing it. And Cammie's in the room tonight, and when I first opened my new place, I did nothing but paper straws. And, well, I can tell you that I had to go to storage and get my case of plastic straws because people complain, okay? Now we are at the point where we say, would you like paper or plastic or nothing at all? There really should be a campaign, nothing at all. Stop. And I have people, we have plastic cups that they come, and if you bring your plastic cup back or you bring your own cup, you get 50 cents off. We're trying.
And it's compostable.
We also have, I pay more for this. This is our to-go container. It's Bag S. So it's the sugar cane that comes out of the glades, and it's actually the pulp. 100% recyclable. You can put it in the oven up to 400. You can put it in the microwave. You're not getting the plastics from the microwave. Also, plastic bags. We give out plastic bags, but they're 100% recyclable. Because unfortunately, I have people that buy newspapers that want to put it in a plastic bag. So, locally, I encourage the merchants, the residents to do better. I think two things that can come out of this meeting tonight is a resolution to Senator Rader supporting his bill and a resolution to the people saying we can do better.
Thank you. Is that a motion?
That's my motion. Is there a second?
There is no motion.
Oh, there is no motion.
There's no motion.
I
This
think
is
you're
a discussion.
It's a discussion.
You're probably looking for consensus.
What did you say?
You're probably looking for consensus.
Yeah. But Commissioner Hardy?
Yeah, so I don't believe I have in this backup at least Senator Rader's bill. I would be interested to know what it is. The other thing is, we have the, it's been said that we should follow, best practice from what other cities have done. Well, this is precisely what another city has done. It's in the state of Florida. They're a waterfront city. It is our property. We do have a right to make the rules under the state statute. So this isn't really a question about what can be done. It's really about a question about whether we want to do it. And so I guess the question is, do we want to allow plastic use at the beach, literally where the turtles live? Or do we want to basically take a stand and say, hey, if you own private property and you're not doing business with the city, you can do this all day. But on our property, you can't do this. I think that's what this ordinance is about. And I would like to see us adopt something like what St. Petersburg did.
Okay, I was reminded tonight is just a conversation, so if you'd like to see something, please bring it back in that form. Richard Stowe?
And while he's speaking, I think we have a consensus that we're all in favor of this, but.
Richard Stowe, 414 North Federal Highway. The plastic, I saw Charles Moore speak in 2002, who he was, I understand, was the person who cited the garbage patch in the North Pacific Gyre as he was sailing back from Australia to California. And I have concerns about plastic manufacturing on the front end, the consumption of oil and gas in the process of, as its, major, base product. And on the back end of the life cycle, plastic emits ethylene, many plastics, I don't know if all, ethylene, and another global warming.
Some other bad stuff.
Yeah. So this is a huge concern. I do just want to put this on the table. If I like the idea of banning, I support the idea of banning plastics on public properties. And what about cigarettes? Do they have plastic components in them?
Do it. Can't ban them.
I know you can't ban them, but do they have plastic components in them?
Good for you.
I don't smoke.
Anyway, definitely move forward on this. It's well worth exploring and putting together good legislation.
Madam Mayor, if you don't mind, at this time, we do have a consensus to move forward with something. The recommendation, my recommendation was if there's anybody here, tonight's just a discussion. If there's anyone here that would like to bring something forward, please bring it back. I will be bringing back a resolution to support Senator Rader's bill that's coming, and also a resolution asking that the citizens of Lake Worth and our business owners do better and look at, banning on their own. I know that our beach complex, I think Mulligan's and Benny's already banned straws, and there's other downtown merchants, so I just think we can do better. Okay?
You finished the item as long as you're...
Yeah, we're done. We had a consensus. Did you have something else?
Well, I just wanted to say that the word discussion is much probably shorter in time than a workshop. And so allowing us to discuss it here without too much angst about the time we're taking discussion now is far better than taking a scheduled meeting as a workshop. So I'm glad we're discussing it. And if we can come to agreement through discussion rather than a workshop, that's wonderful.
Duly noted. Madam Mayor, welcome.
Thank you.
Well, yes, welcome back.
Thank you. I know I had an excused absence, but I got done early.
We're on B.
Okay, new business item B is... Thank you. Discussion regarding the Arts Overlay District brought forward by Commissioner Hardy. You're up, Commissioner.
Sure. So I didn't view this as particularly controversial. I understand that while I and another commissioner were away at a conference, there was a workshop and it just didn't come back. It wasn't necessarily shut down, it just didn't come back. This is actually already in the comp plan. We just didn't approve it in the LDR. So it's in the comp plan. We all voted for the comp plan. Like, seemingly we embraced this idea already. So I would just like to see it put into motion. The really key thing is that the Arts Overlay District is limited to, well, gosh, I should say a limited area, right? It's limited to areas like basically a block north and south of the downtown. We're talking about 2nd Avenue North, 2nd Avenue South, no further than that. And it's limited to Dixie Highway, and it's limited to the area that we already consider the Arts District anyway. And so I guess the question is, why would we not allow people to do art in their home? There are a fair number of regulations already in here about signage, making sure that the signage isn't too obtrusive. There's regulations here about parking. I would just like to see this come back so that we can potentially implement this, because we're an art city. That's what we have embraced about ourselves, and I would like to see us formalize that in every possible way, not just in the comp plan, but also in the land development regulations, which govern land development in the city. So I'm interested in hearing what our thoughts are about this particular issue, and if there are concerns, what exactly are the concerns?
Okay, Vice Mayor?
Okay, if you remember, we talked about this a few years ago.
Sure did.
and it got quite heated. And I'm opposed to, I support the arts. The liaison to the CRA. I've been working the arts ever since we started them here. There was a lot of issues with businesses and homes, and when do they not become, just a home business? When do they become an intrusion to the neighbors, traffic-wise, sign-wise? And if you remember, we had a group that came, and they didn't want to be in the overlay districts that the city already had. They wanted to be able to do it in every home in the city of Lake Worth. And neighbors came in huge numbers and said, this is not acceptable. We bought in single-family home districts to have the quiet and build our homes and not have businesses and UPS and cars and overabundance of traffic in certain neighborhoods. So we had long discussions, and I'm just not comfortable with bringing this back up. We have increased our overlay districts, our art overlay districts on the west side. It goes First Avenue South, Second Avenue South on both sides now. Is that what we just moved on the west side? Goes over to Second.
William?
We've extended it
think
over
you're
to Second.
getting- We have an arts overlay potential district on the future land use map. Mr. Hardy is correct. We have no regulations. The arts overlay district in the LDRs is a reserved section. It has nothing in it.
Okay. But it would include everything that we talked about years ago, correct?
Not necessarily. You can, even though the future land use has one area identified as the potential area for the cultural arts overlay, you can, if you were to adopt an ordinance stimulating or encouraging certain arts uses, it could be a much more limited area than that. And so when it was brought forward to the city commission last, it was a very tight, much smaller district. It ran from Dixie Highway over to F, from 6th Avenue South, I believe, to 3rd Avenue North.
But if I understood right, that's not what Commissioner Hardy was just talking about. He was looking at, citywide or a big or larger district.
No. Point of information?
Sure.
Okay, so the map that I have here shows it pretty clearly. It's in the backup. It's been in the backup. So the far eastern boundary is Gulfview. The northern boundary east of Dixie Highway is 2nd Avenue North. The southern boundary east of Dixie Highway appears to be, 1st Avenue North. So it's from 1st Avenue South to 2nd Avenue North. Okay, none of this, by the way, is single family. Am I correct about that? This is all SFTF 14 or larger? Or mixed use. Or mixed use. Okay, so the statement about people bought into single family homes doesn't necessarily apply. It actually does not apply at all to the district here. All of the stuff west of Dixie Highway is in areas that we consider the arts district anyway. I mean, you're talking about between Dixie and what is that, F Street, or like an alley behind. It's hard to see here. From 6th Avenue South to 3rd Avenue North to A, it's pretty clear. Yeah, so like there's the map. It's a much smaller area than what was originally discussed years ago, and that was because this is a response to the controversy. It was controversial when we were talking about having in single-family neighborhoods in College Park or Parrot Cove or what have you, having people do art stuff. But that's not what this is. This is basically areas that are close to the downtown or in the downtown or in arts district that are already very dense, that have commercial uses already. So that's why I said I don't really see the controversial nature of it. The other thing is this a nuisance, right? And if you look in the actual thing here, that's actually addressed here. Where are we talking about? The stuff about signage. Stuff about signage is addressed here. It tells you that the sign can't be any larger than 4 square feet in area. The parking issues, it tells you that basically all the parking has to be behind the front face of the building, so you're not crowding the street with parking. If you can't do that, then that means you can't basically have the use there. In addition to that, there's some discussion about nuisances, hours of operation, 7 p.m., no later than 7 p.m., no earlier than 9 a.m. Cultural events and performances are limited. Neon signage not allowed. Strip signage not allowed. There's specifically stuff about loudness in here, and I lost it in my. There's something in here about loudness, but I can't find it right now. Anyway,
As a point of information.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. I just had another comment coming, and then I'll come back to you if you want to put your light on.
I'm done, yep.
Okay. Vice Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I'd just like to move along to the next item here. Frankly, I think let's move on.
Any other comment on it? William, just one question I have for you. Okay, the difference was, I remember when we had this discussion a while back, and I'm sorry I haven't been here, so I'm trying to play catch up. The area east of Dixie Highway, that was a number of the block north and south.
It's kind of hard to see it, yes.
The blocks north and south of downtown.
Uh-huh.
That was probably the area that had the most people coming out last time around.
Correct.
That were saying that it wasn't the western portion or the southern portion, or even that first, it was the east of Dixie, just north and south in the cottages areas that people were concerned.
Oh, okay. All right. That area in like magenta color was the area originally proposed when it came forward as part of the LDRs, which is just a sliver, maybe a third of the overall cultural arts district overlay that's in the comp plan.
Okay.
So that was what was proposed as a sort of a test environment to see how it would work and see whether you were comfortable with expanding it to the entire cultural arts district or not. So that was what was presented originally. And you can tell the difference. Sorry, I've been more.
How many of those do you have?
That area, which you can't really see it very well, this stupid thing. It's basically that rectangle on 6th to Dixie, straight up to 3rd, over to F and straight down. That magenta area covers that little swath in the middle.
Doesn't go east.
It
Doesn't go east.
And your parameters, Commissioner Hardy?
So this is what's in the comp plan,
This
this
is the
map,
comp plan
which
overlay
we all
district.
approved. So basically what we're saying here is that we don't want to see the comp plan implemented, which is fine. Perhaps we should change the comp plan to shrink it in the comp plan. Like, why have a cultural arts overlay district that is larger than what we're actually willing to implement? We all voted on this and approved it. So if we're not willing to actually implement it, then maybe we should amend the comp plan to shrink it to begin with, to be that magenta area that we saw originally.
Well, we didn't approve it because there's no parameters in the that are in what we approved that show the jurisdiction. It needs to be added to and come back as a
And the
later
thought was,
motion.
is
We didn't approve that. That was what was proposed. We didn't approve that because if we had approved that, it would have been in the backup documents under the parameters. It would have had the north, south, east, and west.
Well, also the direction that was given to staff was like, since it had been controversial, though the overlay district in the comp plan was this big, there's nothing that says that the implementation of it has to be the whole district at once.
Correct.
So we brought back a smaller version of it to see how it would go, how people would tolerate it, and if it was not well accepted or did not go over well, we wouldn't expand it to cover the whole district. Or in the worst case, if it was a total failure, we could abolish the cultural arts overlay that had been implemented and do nothing. And of course, as Mr. Hardy mentioned, might be appropriate at that time to amend the comp plan.
Am I wrong in stating that this map here, not in the LDRs, but that it's in the comp plan?
Mhm.
Okay, and we approved the comp plan.
Right.
So we approved in the comp plan a cultural arts overlay of these specifications here.
There are
In
no
the comp plan.
There are no specifications really explaining what the arts overlay would be.
Okay.
The comp plan gives you a vision of up to 20 years as to what you would like to see happen and facilitates the other mechanisms like LDRs, guidelines, other ordinances to implement it.
Okay, so, I mean, I really don't see if it is still, by the way, is this area here that we see in the comp plan, 6 or so years ago when this was brought forward, was the cultural arts overlay larger than this area than what we see here in the
This was just brought forward and adopted in June
Okay.
of
Now,
2018.
there was a controversy about this many years ago. I don't know if you were here at that time.
That district was smaller than this,
It was smaller than this. Okay, all right. Well,
quite a bit smaller. I think it only went from Dixie Highway to Gulfview, First Avenue North to Second Avenue South. No, I'm sorry, Second Avenue North to First Avenue South.
okay, well, why don't we do two things? Why don't we just amend the comp plan to make this smaller? If we're not comfortable with it, why have it in the comp plan? Why provide the leeway? It's kind of like the future land use discussion that we had with the baseball fields and with Bryant Park and with the 12 acres. Why not just shrink this in the comp plan and also implement that shrinked version in its totality and just be done with it and not have it on the table for future discussion ever again?
Well, I think that if you're going to bring it forward, if you have an urge to bring it forward, you need to bring the parameters forward as an agenda item to vote on so that if you want to submit that to it, if you want, we don't have to, the comp plan, again, this is the plan that you can go by the parameters for it. When you want to implement it, you create the parameters, and that's what you approve as we go forward, correct, gentlemen? Okay, so there are no parameters in there right now. What you're doing, what you presented tonight for our discussion, is a way to look at those and say, okay, what are the parameters we want to have? I mean, I think, again, if you want to revisit this, we need to get more community involvement from people again.
Totally.
And,
It's a discussion
and have
item, not a
them
voting.
come back out and discuss and say, okay, this is one plan, this is plan A that was suggested, this is plan B that was suggested, this is plan C that was suggested. And have, and discuss and see if there's a palette for any of those items. But as of right now, I think that it has to go, we have to get more people involved to look at this and to see. That plan as shown in that is not something I'm willing to move forward with at this point without community input.
I don't disagree. I guess my question is, do we want to, because previously, any arts overlay district, as far as implementation, went away. And so my question is, do we want to implement any arts overlay district? I mean, is there consensus for implementing an arts overlay district? I would love to get a poll on that. And then if that's the case, then I think we should go forward with community involvement and all of that stuff. But I guess the idea of this was to say, this arts overlay idea just disappeared, and it wasn't necessarily shot down; it just disappeared, right? And so we can't get community involvement unless there's a consensus on the dais for doing something, and I would like to know that.
I mean, I think that there's interest in an art overlay district to some capacity. The majority of areas that you're talking about and discussing that were initially discussed were areas that were primarily mixed use, commercial, industrial, manufacturing areas. There were some cottages in between some of those areas, but they were more, I guess, rooted in a more high traffic area that was, I guess, in the process of coming up. A lot of new businesses were relocating there, but there were also some single family homes, because remember, there was like no zoning in the city 20 years ago. So there's a lot of mishmash of stuff like that. The concern that was posed back years ago was that people were looking to have operated businesses in their homes that would allow employees, would allow traffic, would allow shingles to go up. And the big turnout for that event was people saying, hey, I didn't move into, like the vice mayor said before, I didn't move into a single family neighborhood to have every other door have a shingle on it and traffic coming into the area. We also had a lot of discussion about parking in front of these homes, because many of the homes in our city don't have their own private parking, lots or garages or drive-ups, so they depend on, being able to park on the street and having more people park on the street with employees and customers and blah, blah, blah. And then we got into the actual individual uses from mechanical and business and automobile and oil change. I mean, we've had pretty extensive discussions, and it was all pretty much a resounding no.
Yeah, I just want to be clear, no single-family area is affected by any portion of this.
Yeah, they
Just
are.
like that. No, he literally said it point blank. It's not.
East of Dixie, there are no single family.
No, it's all SFT
There's no
F14.
single-family zone district.
Yeah.
I believe the western end, there may be a little bit of single-family residential in Royal Poinciana and Tropical Ridge, but it's only a couple blocks.
There's no single family homes north or south of.
There are single-family homes, but not single-family zoning.
Oh,
This is what we're talking about.
No, it's not.
no, this is what we're talking about.
If the expectation is the zoning has never been single-family in this area when people moved in.
A lot of single-family homes in
But there's homes.
There's a lot of homes, and that's where the conversation was. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that, all right, well, we don't want to go back and forth here. Let's go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to, in the interest of.
Quiet in the chambers, please.
Commissioner Maxwell's moving on, we have a consensus that we would like to talk further about a arts overlay.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a couple of cards.
That's a
Well,
consensus.
hold on, Madam Mayor, if I might. I don't want anybody putting words in my mouth. Okay, it's campaign season, okay? This item could have been brought forth 6 months ago, and we could have had a conversation about it. This was very controversial back in the day.
Or 2 years ago.
Or,
One at a time,
And I
please.
really don't
Do
want
we
to have
forget our
to
manners?
have that conversation again in the middle of campaign season. I don't think it's right. I don't think it's proper. And if you want to make a statement, you should have made it 6 months ago about this issue, and you should know the history of this issue, instead of trying to bring it back up like it's something fresh and new. Okay, I'm really disappointed. I've sat here tonight and listened to minute after minute after minute of grandstanding and campaigning.
Point of order.
No, there's no point of
Point
order.
of order.
No, there is no
One at a
point of
time.
order.
Point of order. Is this the agenda item that he's
Do
discussing,
you have a,
Madam Mayor?
do you have a
gonna-
second for your point of order? Is there a second for Commissioner Hardy's point of
Do
order?
we ask for a second when Commissioner
Do you have a
Maxwell does
second?
it?
Because that's not the topic.
Okay. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
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 Nay.
Nay.
Motion fails. Thank you.
Anyway, I just, and Matt, you've done this in years past. Remind everybody that it is campaign season and keep their campaigning outside the
Yes,
the
please.
city hall doors.
Yes. You've
This
said
is
it.
just enough. I'm just overwhelmed by this. We all are busy. The folks in the audience are busy. Staff is busy, and they're being jerked around like a rag in a dog's mouth over issues that should have clearly been addressed 6 months ago if they were so important. I'm just really
You've stated-
disappointed that we're
Madam
You've
Mayor,
stated it. Let's
behaving
move
like
on.
this.
May I address? Well,
Let's move on. We're
so,
moving on to public comment cards with Anna Maria,
Different standards for different people on this diet.
followed by Mr. Vivian, followed by Tom Comboy.
Good evening. 404 South C Street. I came to Lake Worth on a promise from the CRA about the Arts District. And I attended a charrette, and there were about 70 to 90 artists present. And the city had an overlay arts district, but they didn't know about it because when it was advertised, it went out first to businesses like attorneys and the people on the know, dentists. And so they took up those properties that were supposed to go to artists, supposedly. So when we had the charrette, the recommendation was, let's move it to Third and then allow artists to come in. So I don't know what happened with that. So my husband and I, we were used in their advertisement. We came because they had then hired the guys from Paducah, Kentucky, who made national history, that they really turned the town around. And for some reason, they got fired. And so we had to search for our own property. And we were looking at C Street, and we found one on Third, on the west side, and we called the CRA and say, hey, we got this house, what do you think? They said, no, that's not in our district. You need to be on the other side of C Street. So we did find one on the other side. That's 404 South C Street. Now, there's 3 artists that live there. We're not in the overlay district. And I have another friend who came in and purchased a house, but obviously the west side's less expensive. We could not qualify for the, well, we all came from Miami, okay? So I have friends living on the north side, but they're also not in the district because it doesn't go further. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vivian?
May I read that? It'll be faster.
Sure.
Michael Vivian, 2381 Sunset Avenue, 106. I am just suggesting that you don't make a toothless tiger bill out of this. As an artist, I'm protected by the First Amendment of the United States, and my right to display, show, perform on my property can't be usurped by our little city thing, or it could be, but I think if it goes to Washington, our city will be said, let Mr. Vivian do what he does because he's protected at his home in Osborne Heights. Done?
Done. Thank you, sir.
Get your signature.
Tom Comboy? You're welcome.
Tom Convoy, 30 South M Street. We moved our business here from West Palm Beach about a year ago, South Florida Engineering Consulting, to a nice 1935 Spanish house, and it's commercial. It was converted to a law office about, I guess, in the 90s. And I just wanted to sort of speak out to the value that I see. We're a block from Lake Avenue, and I see the value in these properties having uses for engineers, lawyers, doctors, et cetera, et cetera. The character is really, really valuable. You can't touch a property like this anywhere near Delray or West Palm Beach. And I think that that's an asset that our city has. And whether we're talking about the arts or anything else, especially when it's not in the single family area, I think it's very important that our city shows the value of this to other potential business owners like myself.
Thank you. Okay, Vice Mayor?
Just in closing, I wanted to mention a few things. So I've always support, which was originally called the Entertainment Overlay District, back in the days when M Street got a dentist, and it was the Entertainment Overlay District. With everything that we've done with the arts, it became the Arts Overlay District. And I support the Arts Overlay District on the west side because it complements everything that we're doing with the artwork live spaces. I like the idea that we have livable workspace downtown, 1 or 2 blocks off of Lake and Lucerne. I'm more concerned when you jump across Federal Highway. I've always said that you get off at Tri-Rail and you come down through the arts district in our downtown, then you get downtown and that's more like the entertainment district, and then you cross Federal and that's more the hotel district. I see that as more of a hotel district, maybe some boutiques, things like that, but I'm concerned that if we go a block, 2, 3 into that district, you are into the cottage homes, the homes. Even though Lake and Lucerne may be zoned for that, I'm still concerned that you're putting people in and around people's homes in that district. That's my 2 cents.
Okay. I think we have consensus to come back and bring this back forward. Well, 4 out of 5. To talk about this in the future. To bring it back in a structured format. And also with outreach to the communities too that are.
Well, let's make sure we get it done before Election Day.
You know what,
One-
Madam
quite-
Mayor, it's been said several times.
point
Do I
of
at least
order.
have the opportunity to do? Oh, now it's point of it's point
Are
of
you
order
okay?
on me?
Excuse me, no. It's only, you know what, guys? I've said this a million times. I've yelled, I've been calm, I've laughed, I've done whatever. Quite honestly, can we just have our discussions? You know what the rules are. You know when to speak, when not to speak. You've done it before. You know when I recognize you, you speak. When somebody else speaks, you don't speak over them. I find it extremely childish to go back and forth. You know not to go back and forth with the audience. You know not to go, I'm just saying it's, let's be adults here and let's just get business done. That's our jobs, not to sit here like children and act like we're ticked off with one another or whatever because we want to get our point in. Let's do the job we're supposed to do for the constituents and not for ourselves. Thank you. Moving on. Item 12C, waste management roll-off.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Hardy, a second by the Vice Mayor. Do we have anything?
No.
City Manager? All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Doesn't Jamie get to talk?
Motion carries unanimously.
I just want to recognize Mr. Brown. He's magnificent.
Really?
Thank you very much, Jamie.
The magnificent Mr. Brown. Thank you.
Thank you.
I felt good about that.
Okay, we moved come on, guys. We moved to item 12D. This is moving, sorry, I wasn't here. Interlocal agreement with the CRA for acquisition and development of downtown property for a public parking area.
So moved.
I'll entertain a
Second.
motion. Moved by the Vice Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by the Vice Mayor. Do we have, who moved it and what?
I moved it.
You moved it?
Well,
I moved
Hold,
it.
one at a time, please. Who moved it?
I moved it.
Okay, Vice Mayor, there you
I moved it because we were at an impasse.
Okay.
I moved it forward so we could carry on a meeting, because at that point, the meeting couldn't move forward, in my opinion.
So you had a consent agenda vote. Sorry, we're not live anymore. I can't listen on my way in my car. What happened?
We were at an impasse. We were 2-2 to
Okay.
move or not to move that agenda item.
And that was the question. Okay.
You have
So it's
public
been moved from
comment?
consent agenda. We've got a motion and a second. Let's go right to public comment, which is Daniel Ilola. I'm sorry if I messed up your name.
A few of them had left from earlier.
Okay, the Lake Worth Playhouse fully supports expanding parking in downtown Lake Worth. Lynn Anderson,
Just not here.
I'm against the transfer of any money to the CRA for acquisition of any property with historic structures for any intent, especially for the construction of a parking garage. Also vote no on changing name of our city. That's not good. Cammie Anderson, C&J Autotex. There you go. Followed by Todd Townsend. So sorry, Miss Anderson.
No, this is awesome. Okay. Good evening, commissioners, and my name is Cammie Anderson. I live at 531 South End Street, and I have a business at 1301 North Dixie Highway called C&J Autotex. I'm a coach. My name's Cammie. Thank
Excuse
you.
me. Yeah, thank
Okay, that's all right. I'm
Quiet in the chambers, please.
I'm co-chair of the Lake Worth Business Committee with Wes Blackman, and this is a part of the Greater Lantana Chamber of Commerce. We represent the businesses of Lake Worth. This afternoon I had some time. I ran downtown and talked to people about the businesses about if they were for this, against this. Coffee Grounds, they were for it. The bookseller, for it. Hummingbird Hotel, the people that are redoing that, for it. And I also went to Publix and I talked to the manager, for it. So I just want to let you all know that everybody I talked to this afternoon, all of the businesses I talked to this afternoon, all of the input I got this afternoon, everybody is for the parking garage. Yep.
Quiet in the chambers,
All
please. You
right.
can't yell out.
And
Thank
then
you.
also too, C&J Autotech sponsors a poetry slam the last Saturday of every month at the Cellar Bookstore. And it's on a Saturday. And it's swamped down there, and people would like to come in. I mean, we have middle school kids, we have the elderly and infirm come in and do their poetry, and it's amazing. But there's no place to park, you know, there's no place to park. So they would appreciate that too. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Todd Townsend, followed by Tammy Panza.
Hello, Todd Townsend, 502 South J Street. I just wanted to, of course, remark about the CRA again. It's been my idea to build a one-story parking lot behind all the stores, behind Lake Ave, right? I came here and said that to you all a long time ago. And now the CRA is just kind of like stealing up my idea. I don't like it. I thought we were family. That's it.
Thank you. Tammy Panza, followed by Christopher Malloy. I'm sorry.
Hi there,
Oh,
Tammy.
You have to look into how you wrote on that. Sorry.
Tammy Penza, 116 North L. I am not opposed to a garage in the downtown area. My objection is to what's contained in the backup and the procedure on how this was done and how it's been done sort of in the background and without appropriate transparency. We bought up some areas between L and M Street. We also have homes under contract, I guess, for the K Street properties. My thought is, why tie up the L and M Street properties and possibly leave them open to a possible huge surface change, I guess you could say, when we have the properties on K Street theoretically in the works. I think the property on K Street is bigger. It's probably more appropriate for a garage, and there are less properties that are going to be affected. I object also with the L&M Street properties that there are a whole number of properties that are going to be affected with something that you're going to be putting a surface structure. And then also with the K Street properties, the wording says surface structure as well. So it's confusing, it's misleading. I believe that assuming that we're going to spend penny sales tax dollars is a little bit presumptuous. I think putting contracts on these houses without having approved funds is a little bit presumptuous. It's like putting the cart before the horse. And there's just a whole lack of transparency with the process. No one reached out to the neighborhood, and you'd be taking away 1/6 of the neighborhood in effect. Additionally, the backup does not state what you're going to do with the L&M Street properties now that you are not going to use it so much that it was removed from approvals. I don't know what you're going to do with it. Is that going to be now put into a kitty where someone else can develop something large and big and something we didn't approve over it? So I think you should specify that.
Thank you. Chris McVoy, followed by Thomas Conboy. It's been so long, and
I actually did change the spelling of my name.
your V looks like 2 L's.
Sorry. I would echo a little bit of what Ms. Panza spoke to, that my concerns are partly the substance of the issue and partly the way it was handled. It seems like putting a $500,000 item on the consent agenda doesn't really help with public discussion and let the public be involved in that. So that just concerns me as not a very good thing. I don't know whether I can slide it in, but I'll try and you can shut me down. On consent agenda, it always bothered me that consent implies that the items are non-controversial. If a commissioner, any commissioner, doesn't agree with it, by definition, there's some controversy, and it's not consent. It seems to me that you don't need to vote on that. You just, if somebody wants to pull it, then pull it. It's not going away. It's just putting it on to new business so people can talk about it. As far as the actual content of the item, and thank you for your generosity there. As far as the actual content of the item, my home is 1940. Part of the reason that I came to Lake Worth is an appreciation for the historic nature, particularly of the downtown. And I have a concern that it starts becoming a slippery slope. Parking garages don't seem to be very historical. Everything that always happened to me all the time that I've been in Lake Worth, whether on the commission or off, I've always heard people commenting on, well, I moved to Lake Worth because of its unusual character. I don't think you're going to hear people moving to Lake Worth because of parking garages. So I have a lot of hesitation about that shift, and I would be in opposition to the transfer. Thank you.
Thank you. Thomas Conboy, followed by Wes Blackman.
Honorable Commissioners, Honorable Mayor. So as I mentioned earlier, we brought our business here. Across the street from us is L&M. The whole process has not been that transparent to us. It's kind of a surprise to see signs saying that the historic homes were going to be potentially moved or demolished. That was pulled from the CRAs, or rather from the Historic Board a little while back. I really value these properties, and I would urge you all to look at some opportunities, because I don't believe the parking is that bad. I don't see it being that bad yet. I'm there every day for the last year, and we always have street parking available the whole time, and the parking lots aren't full except for during the art street painting time, which everything is full at that point in time. But look at maybe working with FAU for an entrepreneurship type of a deal, maybe an incubator for small businesses or tech businesses, because these properties could be extremely valuable in creating something for this city that the city doesn't have. And just keep your eyes open. And please, involve us. We are professionals. Bring it to the open city so that we can all discuss this sort of stuff, not just sort of behind closed doors. And that, I urge you for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Wes Blackman, followed by Richard Stowe.
Good evening, Mayor. Nice to see you, Commissioners. Wes Blackman, 241 Columbia Drive. I did some math in the audience, and it was a little frightening. I realized that I've been a planner for 35 years, so I might be 100 years old by now, I don't know. But 4 letters were mentioned earlier tonight, AICP, and I've also been an American Institute of Certified Planners since 1991. And my beginning as a planner began in economic development in a downtown community next to a major university, Michigan State University. and parking was a critical issue. One thing I've learned over 35 years of being an urban planner is that land, they're not making it anymore. So what you need to do as a city is think very strategically about the land that you assemble, and the CRA is the perfect tool to help you do that. And you can be a player in direct development, as William was talking about earlier with the transfer of development rights. And by owning the land and controlling land, which is what you're enabling the CRA to do tonight, is a good thing, because you can literally direct the future. And parking, regardless of whether we like it or not, the automobile is an economic engine that propels the economy. As of 2019, we'll see how that plays out in the future, but we have to take that into consideration too. And we also need to listen to the people that are impacted around the downtown. But pretty much we're talking about the core, which is from 2nd Avenue North to 1st Avenue South, Gulfview to A. So, thank you.
Thank you. Richard Stowe, followed by Roseanne Malakates.
Close issue, right?
Close.
Malakates,
sorry.
Richard Stowe, 414 North Federal Highway. I am unalterably opposed to the transfer of these funds from the city to the CRA for the express purpose of acquiring these lots to build, whether it's surface parking or, you know, some sort of parking structure. It's just not good for the city. I too moved here when I learned, I think reading through Wikipedia, that Lake Worth had one of the largest intact aggregation of historic homes. And over the 6 years I've lived here, I've seen like incremental progress in repairing and restoring those homes. And the city looks a lot better as a result. It's going to look a lot worse if the city commission moves forward with transferring money to the CRA to acquire further property. And with regard to the 10 historic structures and the 7 contributing historic structures between L and M that have already been purchased by the CRA, that's a tragedy, and it just needs to be, we need to resolve that at another time. It's off topic, but let's avoid that problem by not transferring valuable city funds to the CRA to buy more land. As far as Publix goes, I don't see
Roseanne
what that has to do with
Malakates.
anything.
Thank you.
I have no expertise in traffic or business downtown, but I just wanted to suggest, like in the old days, they used to have all deliveries in the rear entrance or a delivery lane. Anytime you go down Lake Avenue, going east on Lake, invariably you're stopped by a UPS truck or somebody, or a big, food delivery truck right in the middle of Lake Avenue. And it backs up all the way to Dixie Highway. When you come around to turn to go east, you can't go because they're delivery trucks. Is there any way that you can say that you have to deliver to the delivery entrance, and the same at the beach? Could you say deliveries must be before 10 o'clock in the morning? You can't deliver after, or could you make it one lane, one-way traffic up there instead of 2? Anything to prevent building parking garages, because people are using cars less and less, and we want less cars in the city. And I just think it's something to think about. I don't know.
Thank you.
I also have something I would like to give to you because I don't know if at the meeting we're allowed to comment at the workshop.
On Thursday?
On Thursday.
Yes.
Will we be able to have commenting?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Mr. Vivian?
Sorry. Michael Vivian, 2381 Michael Vivian.
Quiet in the chambers.
2381 Sunset Drive, where I came to watch the sunset. Apartment 6A. Don't we already own a property on Lake Avenue that we were thinking of selling? Might that property be appropriate for a parking structure? You know the one where we do our, it's an office for parades and for
Leisure services.
Thank you. Thank you. Question mark? And then one other comment. I saw in the paper last week that Palm Beach International Airport, on top of their parking structure, is installing solar voltaic collectors and selling the power to Florida Power and Light. Could we sell it to ourselves at our little power station? Thank you.
Thank you. Any more cards?
No, Madam Mayor.
Seeing there are none. Commissioner comments? Commissioner Hardy?
Yes, Madam Clerk, did you receive communication from a citizen asking about whether or not it's proper for a commissioner to read into the record, for example, like a letter or something?
I did.
And did you find that it was proper?
The blue card, on the back of the blue card, it says that if you send it to your commissioner, they have the right to read it or not read it. But if you just email it to the city individually, it may not get read it's at the discretion of the commission. You can read the blue card, the back of the blue card.
Okay, there are two emails I'd like to read that were sent to me.
They were sent to you, and it's at the discretion, the mayor is running the meeting.
It's at my discretion, which I'm fine with you reading the emails. Just make sure that you're going to run the time the same you would, so that the email doesn't have any more time than somebody who actually showed up at the meeting does.
Are we ready?
Yep, we are.
Okay, this from Betty Resch. Her law office is on 521 Lake Avenue. Good morning, all. She's not able to attend the meeting. As a 30-year downtown resident and business owner, I walk or drive by the properties on L Street and K Street every day. First, the fact that an action as important to the future of the city is on the consent agenda is disturbing. Consent agenda items are historically used for non-controversial items where no discussion is anticipated. One has to wonder how it ended up on consent. There are many options about this issue with citizens. The elimination of over 20 small, relatively affordable housing units is something that will impact the city for years. We are known for our cottage life, and now we are tearing down housing where lots of folks live. We need housing for the restaurant workers, the working people who make up the fabric of the city. We tout walkability, and yet you are facilitating the destruction of the houses of many of the people who walk. By taking down these historical residential properties, you would be creating essentially downtown Lake Worth as a strip mall with restaurants. People need to live downtown in order for the place to be vibrant. On the other hand, we hear issues about all of the closed storefronts downtown, yet on the other hand, we hear that there's a parking problem. I have gone to the church parking lots in the downtown. There are 4 right downtown, no farther than 4th Avenue North, but 3 are closer. As a matter of fact, the Church of the Glades parking lot sits across the street from the houses you are helping to destroy, right across the street. This parking lot has about 187 spots. They sit empty all week. Has anyone thought to go to see them, about renting them? We'd have plenty of parking. It would be a win-win. I wonder if that idea has ever been explored. Altogether, the parking lots of the downtown churches would add about 800 parking spaces to the city. Even if that idea doesn't work out, I implore you to receive and file or table this agenda item. There is some solution here, hopefully without expanding the areas taken for moving demolition realistically. It's too important to the future of our city. People have now become aware of the purchasing and planned demolition and are upset. Please listen to your constituents. I would be happy to discuss this with any of you. Is that within 3 minutes?
It is.
Okay. I received an email from Ann Fairfax, which I believe it's proper for me to read into the record. Okay, so for those of you who don't know Ann Fairfax, she is a world-renowned architect who splits her time between here, Palm Beach, and New York City. She's won awards here in the city that we've given to her. She's won awards elsewhere. Her and her husband, Palladio Awards, Stanford White, etc.
You just read it, please.
As a citizen of Lake Worth, I want to state my opposition to using taxpayer monies to acquire properties with the explicit intent to demolish historic residential housing to make way for surface or structured parking. This is an irreversible and harmful move. It is not out of nostalgia, but based on solid evidence that I voice my concern. Please don't take Lake Worth down this path. You will regret it. Just talk to Savannah. They did the same thing and have regretted it ever since. And they say so on all the tours. Once you break the spell that we have with the scale here, you can't go back. So my comments are, I don't think we voted on a parking structure, but we have voted to acquire land for parking structures we haven't actually approved. And so that's kind of a problem. You should approve the parking structure and then acquire the land to get it. We're putting the cart before the horse, and I have an issue with that. Additionally, yeah, I mean, you're basically going to tear down 20 units of housing to replace it with maybe 20 units of, like 20 parking spots, maybe. So, you know, no, there are actually 3, and there's some units on the, what is that, First Avenue South? That's a multifamily. So it's about 20 units. And so you'd be taking away 20 units of housing where people already are 24/7 and replacing them with parking spots, which may or may not be used. So I again, I don't know. I mean, you know, the people who could patronize the downtown are living right there. And so I don't believe I can vote for this. I also had a problem with it being on the consent agenda, and I think that the way that this is proceeded generally, I regret. So.
I agree with it being on the, not about being on the consent agenda. I always like to talk about things. I don't like to talk about things ad nauseum, but I like to talk about things. And I like to hear people's opinion on them. So, you know, I think that, again, we should be having discussions about this. It's, you know me, I'm always like right in the center. I understand both sides of the argument. I also know, having sat here for a while, that, you know, every time we have a conversation, it's the downtown businesses are empty. The downtown businesses are empty. Then you talk to 16 different people that want to open a business, whether it's a shoe shop or whether it's a, you know, a big business. Everyone says, well, we were interested in Lake Worth, but the parking situation is unbearable and we're not going to open a business there. So I've heard it not once, maybe 20-something times. I've been on a Tuesday circling around every surface parking lot looking for a parking space on a Tuesday night to go have dinner downtown, and I don't find it. I had a conversation, city manager knows how contentious this is with me because I bring it up every couple of years. When we had a conversation 7 years ago and I said there's a parking problem in downtown, and he says we don't have enough critical mass. And I said by the time we do have enough critical mass, it's going to be too late. And that was the time when I suggested buying the land behind the post office, which is now Kennedy Homes Townhouses. When I discussed purchasing land behind the Playhouse, which was then, I forget what it was, and then another piece of land down that was closer to Federal Highway, which is already sold. You know, these conversations over the course of, say, a 5-year period, when we had opportunities to purchase this other land somewhere, whatever, regardless to say, there's going to be a parking problem. There always is going to be a parking problem, and the downtown will continue to suffer without parking for what is moving in, the people that decide to move in, despite the fact that there's not enough parking. And there's going to be a lot of turnover in that downtown until that happens. I wish more people rode bicycles, trust me. All right, quiet in the chambers, please, sir. Thank you. So we're sort of at this point in the road. If we do nothing, then we're going to have a problem in the future. If we do the wrong thing, we're going to have a problem in the future. So I'm sort of in here, we need to have some more discussions on this. I don't like the way things sometimes get done around here. You know, I'm all about, having discussions about it and transparency, and I will beat everyone over the head with that as much as I possibly can, because every single time you try to put something through on a consent agenda like that, guess what? You get people thinking something that's not, that it's not, and you're just shooting yourself in the foot every single time you don't have a conversation about it. Talk about it, and then beg to differ and have discussions about it. You know what I mean? So, we can talk afterwards, guys, please. So, I mean, like I said, just let's talk about everything. And again, we can have a difference of opinion after we talk about it, but don't do that. It just creates a contentious situation every time. But do I think that we need a parking garage or a parking structure? Do we need more surface lots? Yes, we do. Talk to any business owner downtown and they'll tell you, yes, we do. So we have to figure out what to do and where to put them and how we're going to figure out a place to do it. Surface lots, yes, maybe first. Let's come up with something like that. Could we do a green building? Yes. Could we do a solar on the roof? Yes. Could we be a leader in whatever structures we create that are different than others? Yes. Should we be? Yes.
It's our budget. I gotta go listen to our cousin Donnie. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. Vice Mayor.
I just wanted to weigh in for a minute. As a longtime downtown merchant, I live downtown. I can tell you that if I didn't have parking in a structured parking garage, 99% of the time I would not find parking. Also, I used to live next door to Tammy Panza, and she's got a little parking spot that she can pull up in her front yard. I didn't have that. So I'd have to schedule my time to go grocery shopping, and I embrace that because I lived in the downtown. But it's a little different in a downtown area. You know, long term, do we need more parking? Absolutely. Do we need more livable workspace? Absolutely. Do we need more small retail? Absolutely. You know, we're very seasonal. Somebody asked me today, I didn't know Lake Worth was so seasonal. We are very seasonal. And until we change that, our downtown will not be successful, whether we have empty businesses or not. Eventually, somebody will come in with deep pockets and rent these locations. But if they don't have parking, or they don't have livable people, walkable, sustainable downtown that people live in, that there's small retail, it will not sustain itself all summer long. And the merchants that are there now need that. You know, could we have done it different? Absolutely. But sometimes these homes, these things, they come up and they're for sale and you have to jump on it. The mayor made a comment. Boynton, Lantana, Del Rey, they own a lot of land where they can make different deals. They can get things they want. We don't own any of that. So when these things come up, we do have to take advantage of it, because if we didn't get those little houses, I guarantee you somebody else would have, and they would have done something there. I know developers that are looking to do something there. So why shouldn't it be us? Why shouldn't it be us on behalf of the residents that we do some smart growth? We put in maybe parking. You know, this is just the first step. Then we go out and we look for investors and people that are going to partner with us. We hate that word. To do something with smart growth, to do something that we want, something that's green, something that has solar, something that has small retail, something that, you know, direct people, tourists, people that are coming here, that there's additional parking back there. Can we do better? Absolutely. And this is just a piece of how we grow, you know, a walkable, livable, sustainable, and in a perfect world, you want it to be bikeable, you want it to be walkable, but people have cars. You know, I walk as much as I can, but I have to get in my car and I need somewhere to park it. And, you know, the downtown is very complicated when it comes to those issues. So I support it.
Commissioner Robinson?
I'm disappointed that the mention of campaign season, or whatever you want to call it, is brought up when we're doing business to go into the future. There has been plenty of campaigns that the commissioner has been involved with that business was not done before campaigns. So I think that it was a cheap shot at doing business that we need to do and bringing politics into it. I was interested in pulling it off the agenda because it certainly deserves public input. And I am sorry that it was on consent. We certainly need to get in front of greed when if there's desirability on the property, the price is going to go up. So we have land we've entered into the possibilities of housing. We've entered into the possibilities of partnerships. We've protected ourselves from businesses that need parking. I am certainly sorry that we're going to talk about surface parking, but it's land that will be hopefully have the potential for building. I certainly don't want to do a structure that doesn't involve a profit and it doesn't include housing. That said, the process was flawed in my estimation, but we're moving forward. And then to bring it up as a campaign thing was just disappointing.
Right.
And I question why it was brought up.
Can we move on, please? I understand.
Part of the problem here.
Vice Mayor?
I just wanted to mention real quick, there was a comment made about Church of the Glades and possibly renting. I can tell you that the CRA reached out to the Church of the Glades, and the Church of the Glades will be very happy to rent us parking spaces at $3 an hour. And a cost of about $400,000 a year, and that does not include insurance, liability insurance. So those conversations were had, and I just wanted that for the record.
Yeah, and just to add to that too, yes, we've had numerous conversations with all the churches and all the buildings and all the businesses that surround the buildings that, like my office where I rent. You know, with those people, they wanted to do something at night. Again, it's the liability insurance. It's what they would charge. Basically, what we have told, the valet organizations that are in there for the Playhouse or on Lucerne or whatever, for private businesses to come in and operate a valet, guess what? They take, we've talked about this before, they take cars off the street so that people can find a parking spot, and they move them to a lot where they rent and they pay for, and they take out insurance, and they do all of that so that people can park on the streets in the downtown areas. So, we can talk about that, or the city paying for that, or taking out the insurance for that, or we can encourage other people to come in and do those business deals that are already happening on the lot on by the paint store. That's rented at nighttime by the valet to put cars in that lot, and there's another lot behind it and whatever. We have to have a lot of conversations. The parking issue is not going away, and it's just going to get worse. And it's not just, people may not use cars so much within the interior of the city. We also have other options to come hopefully talk about soon, including trolleys returning, yay. And other things of that nature, so that we can go about business and try to be as automobile free. But guess what? When that hotel opens, and it will, you mark my words, and any other hotels open in this area, that tourism element, guess what? They're going to be driving cars. So keep that in mind too. Commissioner Hardy?
Yeah, I guess my question is, planning staff has looked at these properties. Have you? That's a question.
From what standpoint?
Do you know how many acres the properties are? Do you have an estimate of how many parking spots can fit on these properties? And I guess my question is, if there are 20 units where people are living year round, and I imagine that these people are not going downtown being as they live there.
I'm sorry, just a point of information. How many units are there that we're talking about? This 20 keeps getting thrown out. I just want to make sure that's an accurate number.
Well, it's my understanding the two properties that will be looked at by the CRA at K involve 2 dwelling units at K and First Avenue South.
Is there not?
You're thinking of a condo building that's near
That's
there,
right
but
there.
the two
Is that
properties
not it?
are on K Street.
Okay, all right.
There's 2. Can I?
Sure.
Maybe I can answer
City
some of
manager,
the
please
questions.
do it. Yeah,
I've been waiting all night for this one.
Okay, city manager?
First, I asked the CRA to initiate negotiations for these various properties, some of which you've already purchased on L&M Street, and these 2 last ones here that are joining the city-owned parking lot that exist on K Street behind the Playhouse. The reason we did it this way is If you do the process backwards and we come to you as the public body and say, how much are you willing to spend for these? You have no ability to negotiate. Okay, these are contracts to purchase. These are not purchases. Everything comes back to a decision point by this body to be made in the public, however y'all see fit. That is in y'all's playing field. From staff's perspective, we hear and understand when we have meetings, publicly paid for studies like the parking study, and when we go through comp plan meetings and LDR meetings where we set in the downtown zoning district densities and intensities that are put there, understanding that you cannot have a functioning downtown with what you got right now. As much as people want to be nostalgic about the vacancy and the condition of what exists from First South to Second North, it ain't working. It ain't ever going to work. There's nothing you can do to push that rope. However, you've identified that we need to bring residents downtown, infill the vacancy, fix the parking problem, whatever that solution ends up being. And yeah, it'd be nice to get a hotel too. And that is what I understand from this group in your perspective and conversations over many meetings and many reviews of data, that's where we need to be going. It's our job as staff to pitch those things up to you that we believe match up with those strategic priorities. And granted, we're going through a strategic planning session, so it can actually be put down on paper. People can stop yelling at staff saying, why are you doing these things? We're following what we believe is your direction to move in those areas. And there is disagreement, and that's okay. And that process happens. But that's the reason we went out and I asked the CRA to move forward with a contract to get the deal done, because we probably saved hundreds of thousands of dollars on these transactions by doing that first and then bringing it to you. So if that's a problem, y'all need to tell me that's a problem and I'll stop. But right now, we brought these forward and we got what we believe are the best deals possible on adjoining properties to solve specific issues. And in this case, it's tailored to add more footprint to a potential solution for a parking solution structure, whatever it ends up being. And the study has some comments about that. It's land banking in a way. And it's necessary. This may not be a decision you make for a while. But for the first time, this city actually has the resources to actually do these things. We could have bought properties, Mayor, and you're right. You really were all over the place with those things. And those were great ideas. And the fact of the matter is we didn't have the sales tax to fuel these decisions. And now you've got resources and you've got decision points that are coming up. And we're having a problem as a community, I guess, in trying to get through those. That's not unusual. So this process, everybody's wringing their hands, but it's normal for a city to go through this. The historic structures that exist, contributing, not contributing, they are on these properties that we're talking about, and rightfully so. And I think an apology is owed to everyone that a application went forward ahead of really what it should have been to the HRPB. And again, I'll take the responsibility for moving forward with that. I don't think anyone ever believed that we would weigh a vacant surface parking lot against a historic structure downtown. But the way the application process for the HRPB is set up, it requires you to submit a site plan, elevation of what it is you're going to put there. And that's what we bought those properties for, was to create parking. In this case, it was really narrowly defined as surface parking. That doesn't mean we weren't considering other options on L&M and on K Street as well. There's a process for those historic structures to go through, and for us, even as a government, to go through a very public process to weigh out the pluses and minuses. And it would be great for us to find people who wants to take those homes, and we would give them the demolition or whatever else you decide is a policy decision to maybe get those put into the neighborhood somewhere on a vacant piece of property and loved and returned to their former glory. But the way they are right now and where they are right now, it doesn't, because they're historic, give them a carte blanche existence in that place forever. It just doesn't. The code doesn't grant that it shall be this way forever. Amen. So yeah, we're going to push those questions and bring those decisions points to you and through the process, because we're trying to fulfill the end goals to bring middle-class residents and folks into our city, in the downtown, address the parking, and make an economy that works here and create jobs. All those ones within this area, not into the neighborhoods, not down in past First Street. You know, we're about to embark on a whole process to do neighborhood planning. In our comp plan, staff put the language in there, and you approved it, says we are a community of neighborhoods. We value and understand that. That's what makes this city. But the downtown needs some help, and we're trying to follow that direction. I think we've done it with this. And we can have conversations on consent agenda and how that works. There is a lot of disagreement internally on that. And believe me, I don't know of an item that comes forward that somebody isn't complaining about in one fashion or another. There's never agreement in this city. That's part of our charm. But we've gotten to this point now. I would recommend that we move forward in acquiring these properties, and then we decide on how we're going to solve these problems into the next logical steps, which are going to take some serious discussions and meetings and direction back to staff. You have the resources, and we have the time to get some of these things resolved, but don't miss the opportunity to pick up properties that you can make good decisions on in the future and address the historic concerns too. I'm not saying those are to be dismissed in any way, shape, or form, but there's nothing nefarious here. This is something that's important to the future of this city and its sustainability, its viability, its economics. It's important. And I just wanted to add that, so thank you.
Thank you. Just a reminder too, I see, guys, just lately, I'm seeing phones up here, I'm seeing things going on and people typing and whatnot. There's no electronics allowed during the meetings, as a reminder. So there's no communicating with other people while you're sitting up here on the dais. Keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Thank you. Commissioner Hardy?
Okay, I have a question. So when someone wants to do something on a property and they're not sure if that will be approved by a board, for example, don't they put the property under contract, and they won't buy the property until a board actually approves a site plan or approves the demolition of a structure? Isn't that the way that things typically work?
Commissioner Hardy.
I'm asking a very pointed question. I would really like an answer to the question. Right, we just had an issue on 10th Avenue and A where somebody had a contract under property that they do not actually own, but they came and asked for the site plan and all of that stuff to be approved before they actually bought the property. Isn't that the way things sometimes work?
City manager.
Do you want to?
The
answer is no.
This is not a complicated question.
How's that?
Don't.
Do you want me to give you the long answer?
Be respectful up here on the dais, please. Be respectful in your tone.
And yes, it is a complicated answer, because a private developer that has a piece of property with one decision point, which is basically, can we get this approved through the zoning or historic preservation process, is a very definable thing. You've saddled me with not only trying to find a footprint for a parking solution, but now I've got to also find out what the heck this parking thing is, and oh, by the way, how much do you want to spend on it? So I'm trying to create as much options. That can take a couple of years in this organization, if at all. So I can't get anybody to give me a contract on that.
Okay, so here's the thing. Before these things can be demolished or scraped, the HRPB has to actually approve that.
That's correct.
If it's okay, so it's possible that we could buy this, right? Have paid for it, and the HRPB, which is filled with preservationists, could say no, and then we do what?
I would appeal it to you.
And so you would appeal it and ask us to do the opposite of what the people who we've appointed on the boards who specialize in
that's the
historic
process
preservation
set
do.
forth in the code, if I'm correct.
It's happened before.
And understand. I'm not suggesting that we're not to that point, because I don't think we should necessarily submit any plans until y'all decide what it is you want to do on these properties, and that's what gets submitted to show what the process is going to render if we indeed remove these homes.
One step at a time.
Yeah, we're way ahead of, we're way over the tip of our skis.
All right.
This is planning for the future set of decisions you haven't made yet.
Motion to call the question.
Question's been called. Do I have a second to call the question?
Second.
All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, we've got a motion on it. Now I need a motion.
You have a motion.
We've got a motion and a second. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 4-1. All right, moving on. to our electric utility consent agenda.
Seconded.
Moved by the Vice Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Commissioner Hardy. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. Motion carries unanimously. City Attorney, do you have anything?
No.
City Manager just walked out, so
Nope.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
Moved by the Vice Mayor Pro Tem. Do I have a second to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. Have a great night, everyone.
Hi, we'll see you tomorrow.